Friday's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, January 24th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Krystal Ball, co-host of Krystal and Kyle and Friends and Breaking Points. Also on the program today, large parts of our government in complete disarray as Trump's assault on civil servants begin. Meanwhile, a judge blocks Trump's birthright plans, blasts them as obviously unconstitutional. This as active duty troops begin to man the southern border. Newark's mayor claims ICE raided a business without a warrant and harassed citizens and non-citizens alike. Senate Republicans won't let mounting evidence of Pete Hegseth's sexual abuse, drinking, and incompetence stop his confirmation. Meanwhile, Trump moving to close the Pentagon office, which focuses on curbing civilian deaths, increasing intel and targeting. Meanwhile, Trump pardons anti-abortion assaulters. Instagram and Facebook are now censoring posts of abortion bill providers. Speaker Johnson apparently discouraged Casey Hutchinson's subpoena. She was the chief of staff of Mark Meadows for their investigating the investigators J6 committee because too many Republican lawmakers sent her sexual texts.
That's so out of character.
Trump DOJ halts police reform agreements. These are consent decrees where the Justice Department says, hey, maybe you shouldn't be so racist. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Casual Friday.
Super casual.
To the extent that you can be casual in this era.
Right. It's difficult. There's so much news and there's so much horrific news. And, this mass deportation stuff is going to be abject cruelty. I saw the official White House account tweeted out a photo of some migrants boarding a plane, and it was like, promises made, promises kept, deportations are beginning. That's what we need more from our government. More cruelty towards people as opposed to making their lives easier.
We will get into obviously a lot of the immigration stuff too. In the meantime, we in the run-up to the election, we talked quite a bit about Russell Vogt, and he was part of the offshoot organization aligned with the Heritage Foundation that developed Project 2025. There's a lot of stuff in Project 2025. What is it, 900-page document? The heart of it is, some of it is sort of like standard conservative stuff and stuff that's been around, some of it like radical policies. But the fundamental heart of it has always been centered around the destruction of the administrative state. You'll recall that's what Steve Bannon called for at CPAC 8 years ago, right around now. I think it was in February of 2017. And it took them a while to sort of figure out how they were going to do it. And by the end of Trump's first term, they wanted to create this Schedule F employment edict, essentially getting rid of the civil service status of a lot of the career people who work in our government, who work for Republican administrations, who work for Democrat administrations, and just bounce back and forth. It doesn't matter, because there has been at least a begrudging one on the Republican side that we need agencies in government to function. You know, Nixon started the EPA.
Right.
And the conservative movement is such that they started to believe their own rhetoric so intensely that there is a sense that it is really a problem to have government. Now, understand, all of this, it is about extracting America's wealth. When you get rid of an agency, almost every agency, not every, but almost, much of the ones that are sort of forward-facing to the public, what they do on some form or another is inhibit corporate profits, because a lot of those profits come at the expense of society. It's too expensive to burn this chemical. We're just going to dump it into the river. Society will deal with it. Dead fish, cancer, whatever. You know, we could do full disclosure on this stock offering, but that would cut into our ability to profit from it, so we won't. No, the SEC says, actually, you have to. We could go down the line with this. People get it. You know what? It's much easier. We're going to make a lot more money if we can put 75 chickens into this little coop and just give them a ton of antibiotics and not worry so much about any diseases they might have. And we're going to sell more chicken. Well, you know, the USDA, the FDA, I mean, people will step in. Not as much as I'd like them to, but that's the idea. And they want to get rid of these agencies so that they do not inhibit corporate profits. And when they assault health and research, they just want to privatize that too. Because health research that is done by the government is not for profit. Mm-hmm. And so they will do things that are not efficient. If your sense is the only thing that's efficient is one that drives profit, then all of the research the government does, and the government does it because the private sector won't.
I mean, and it's all also a completely false notion. It's not, corporations are not more efficient than the public sector, because a lot of the money that they extract or that they make goes to things like corporate stock buybacks that are just about inflating the wealth of the wealthiest people on the board or the executives. There's a lot of waste. The Pentagon is probably our government agency that outsources, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I would not, in terms of dollar figures, has contracts with private companies, and they're the most wasteful part of our government. They fail audits every single year. The
whole point is that for a conservative, the idea of doing something that does not have a profit motive is necessarily wasteful.
Right.
There is no value in health research for the sake of health research. A little bit problematic when it comes to like the potential for a bird flu on the horizon, when you don't allow agencies to talk to each other. But just to give you a sense of what they're doing is Transportation Department, this is from Wall Street Journal, temporarily shut down a computer system for road projects. Health agencies stop virtually all external communications in a directive that risks silencing timely updates on infectious diseases. In other words, one agency can't talk to another agency. Hiring freeze left agencies wondering how parts of the government could adapt to new demands. Confusion loomed over how agencies should disperse funds allocated by the previous administration. We'll get to that in a moment. Glitches aren't uncommon during the early days of presidential transitions, but this is on purpose. Mm-hmm. They have also started sending out letters about federal DEI programs. We'll get to that in a second, but let's start with this first clip of, we've got two clips of Russ Vought, right? You heard yesterday Tim Kaine say, is it woke to do this? Is it woke to do that? Well, I think from their perspective, they think it is. Let's start with Jeff Merkley about his support for the failed welfare reform, because in the 90s, Bill Clinton signed the welfare reform that the Republican lawmakers brought him, because that's Bill Clinton. And it wasn't until we started having severe job losses that we really saw the impact of what was happening here. Extreme poverty went through the roof. Go ahead.
Let's turn to work requirements. You've been a big advocate of work requirements. You encourage states to adopt waivers that would allow them to do that.
Pause it, incidentally.
Medicaid.
He's saying work requirements, not for getting some type of welfare payments, work requirements for Medicaid, for health care. And also, just to be clear here, a lot of times when you can't work, it's because of health reasons. Okay.
You encourage states to adopt waivers that would allow them to do that for Medicaid. One state tried it, Arkansas. It produced no increase in the hours worked, no increase in employment. It failed. Why did it fail? Because the way that people are able to work is when they're healthy. When they can't access health care because you want to cut it off, they're really trapped in poverty. And trapping people in poverty is really, well, not helpful. Now that your idea failed so miserably, are you going to advocate for it again?
You know, Senator, one of the major legislations that our side has been very proud of since the 1990s was the impact of welfare reform in the 1990s. It led to caseload reductions, people getting off of welfare, going back into the workforce. And we think that type of thinking should be applied to other federal programs. And it's informed not only Medicaid, but other programs to be able to encourage people to get back into the workforce, increase labor force participation, and give people, again, the dignity of work.
And you believe cutting off health care encourages people to work when they need to get better health in order to work? It doesn't make any sense.
Again,
and it's been a failed experiment, but you've answered the question. You're still an advocate of that failed approach that traps people in poverty and is quite disturbing. Now,
let's be clear here. He does not want to defend the Arkansas experiment that took place in the last Trump administration. Arkansas sought a waiver, and from CMS, and they imposed a work requirement on it. The work reporting requirement harmed thousands of people. It's from the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities. Took away their health coverage, leaving many uninsured. It required thousands of others, harmed them by basically living under the constant stress and threat of loss of coverage. People who were supposed to be exempted from submitting monthly proof of their work hours were not always shielded from losing coverage. The requirement imposed extreme levels of red tape on targeted Medicaid enrollees, resulting in coverage losses and no increases in employment. So if your theory is that these people just want Medicaid and they don't want to work, here's the experiment that shows you that it must be the case. Not even one of them. Like, you're not encouraging anybody to work. It just, whatever you did, it didn't happen. And instead of like actually addressing the actual experiment for which he's advocating, Vote just says, well, it's sort of analogous to the welfare reform situation, which incidentally was an abject failure. We knew it once people started losing their jobs. Vote is the Trump OMB director. He is going to be the one who's in charge of both like austerity on a programmatic level and at driving out all these employees. It's stuff like Schedule F, I should say. Here is Chris Van Allen asking if Trump will comply with the Impoundment Control Act. The Impoundment Control Act is legislation passed by Congress that says if we pass a bill, let's say the Inflation Reduction Act, and it has billions of dollars worth of payments to go out. It obviously just doesn't go out on day one. It goes through different processes. Different agencies send, here's for building tunnels. Here's for building communities. Here's for whatever it is. It goes through these different agencies. So the money's not out the door on day one. In fact, in a lot of situations, it takes a couple of years, 3 years, 4, 5 years. Sometimes it's not even scheduled to then. Donald Trump wants to stop those payments. But it is illegal to do so unless Congress completely overturns the law. And the law that says it's illegal to do that is the Impoundment Control Act. And Russ Vought is the one who would oversee disbursements of these monies that Congress has already said should go to X, Y, or Z.
Now, I listened very carefully to the exchange you had with Senator Murray. And you had a very clear opportunity to say, yes, you will comply with the Impoundment Control Act. I didn't hear you say that. So just to give you another chance, will you comply with the Impoundment Control Act?
Senator, the president ran against the Impoundment Control Act.
This is, Mr. Vought, I know what the president did. He wants to change lots of things. He can submit legislation to do that. But you are going to be the head of OMB, and here today at this hearing, you're refusing to commit to comply with the Impoundment Control Act. Is that right? Are you refusing to commit to complying?
Senator, the administration has to go through a policy process to understand the legal parameters for operating in the ICA.
Okay, I'm going to reclaim my time. I'm sorry. I was just, it seems that complying with the current law, even if you disagree with it, would result in a clear answer. Yes, I will comply with the current law, including the Impoundment Control Act. Let me turn to Doe.
Understand that all bets are off.
Yep.
They don't feel like they have to do anything statutorily.
That's basically them saying if Congress passes like a law that I don't like, I don't necessarily need to enforce it. This is his attempt to expand his powers beyond really anything that the Constitution ever enumerated to the presidency. The presidency and the executive branch is even more powerful. It gets more powerful every year. This would be an enormous step. Like Trump already kind of did this and he was impeached over it. This is when he withheld Ukraine money, if you recall, from Zelensky and from Ukraine. Because
passed by Congress.
He wanted, which was allocated by Congress, passed by Congress, because he wanted them to investigate Joe Biden. And that was the first time Donald Trump was impeached. So this is this is Vought basically saying, no, we want to kind of, even though Donald Trump was impeached for this, well, the Supreme Court says that basically, he can do it. He's immune as he's president. We want him to be able to do that for a variety of different things.
So understand, we've got Vought essentially talking about means testing or work requirements on programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Always starts with Medicaid. And the idea that maybe we're not going to distribute funds from the IRA because some of those might go towards like supporting
wokeness,
woke solar power or woke wind power or woke manufacturing grants or whatever it is. And later in the program, we're going to talk about what's going on with this DEI, because the one thing they also understand is it is people. If you can mess with policies much easier by messing with the people that are supposed to be executing them. That's why Russ Vought is there. He's the one who's willing to say to Donald Trump, it's against the law what you want to do to not pay out this money that Congress has authorized and allotted. But I'm with you, guy.
Right. And I'm going to help, quote, traumatize the federal workers to the point where they feel intimidated internally from doing their jobs.
We're going to get to that. That's what the whole DEI thing is a cover for. It's just the first wave. And we'll talk about that in a bit. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Krystal Ball, co-host of Breaking Points and of Krystal, Kyle, and Friends. But first, a couple of words from our sponsors. According to the CDC, which of course you would never hear from again if the Trump administration has its way. But according to the CDC, fewer men than women meet the minimum daily intake recommendations for fruit and vegetables. And men are more likely to overvalue exercise and undervalue nutrition. Some of us, men, undervalue exercise and undervalue nutrition. Enter Ritual. It's a multivitamin scientifically developed for men to help fill their nutrient gaps in their diets. I don't know when I started taking Ritual, if it was like 3 years ago, but I just had my annual physical last Thursday, and my vitamin D, not a problem. Since Ritual came into my life, I actually take my vitamins. Vitamin D was always a problem for me. Now it's not. And believe me, I do not get outside more. It contains 10 key nutrients in 2 delayed release capsules per day designed to dissolve later in the small intestine, an optimal place to absorb nutrients. Oh, this is the great thing about it. You can get it on a subscription service, so you never forget. That was always my problem. Doctor, I would leave the doctor's office. Your vitamin D is down. Make sure you take a multivitamin. I would buy the multivitamin. I would go through a month's worth on the multivitamin. I would finish, and I would forget, and I would never start again, and that's it. And then by the 5th week, it's like nothing ever happened. Ritual, they'll send it to you on a regular basis. And the other thing is that on a daily basis, I would forget to take these things because I'm like, oh, I haven't eaten yet. I'm not going to take it because it's going to hurt my stomach. Well, Ritual multivitamins have a slow dissolving feature, essentially. And like I say, it's in the small intestine. So it's gentle on an empty stomach. They have been rigorously tested and validated by third party for allergens, microbes, and heavy metals. Ritual multivitamins are vegan, non-GMO, project verified, gluten and major allergen free, and made traceable. So you know where these things come from. Ritual uses scientific tools, select lower carbon packaging, prioritize sustainability, sourced ingredients, and set ambitious climate goals. Ritual is a female-founded B Corp, meaning they're holding themselves accountable to not just their company's financial health, but the health of people and our planet. Essential for Men is a quality multivitamin from a company you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/majority. That's ritual.com/majority for 25% off your first month. Link in the podcast and YouTube description and at majority.fm. And also, folks, if you notice, I have a little more energy than normal today, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah, I got a good night's sleep last night. And that is always a function of my Sunset Lake Seder Good Night Oil tincture. January in general, tough month. This January, particularly tough. I suspect February is not going to be much better. But that makes it hard for you to stay on top of your wellness goals. Apparently, Seder can help maintain your healthy habits this year. Depending on your dose, Seder oil can help you with sleep. That's my experience. If you sleep well, you end up doing your exercise, everything's better. It can help you with stress. It can help you with relaxing. I don't like to relax. Everything you need to roll with the punches doled out by this insane news cycle. The best part is that Sunset Lake's tinctures are also sugar-free and allow you to customize your dose. They come in all different strengths, and they come in like 3 different flavors. And they also, on top of that, have, like I say, some with Seba-N, which is the good night oil, some with melatonin, also for sleeping. And you could save right now on their tinctures, 35%. Sunset Lake Seba-Day tinctures. When you check out with the code, you ready for this? Tincture. TINCTURE.
Wow. That's the code?
That's the code.
Tincture.
Yep, because you can save 35% on the tincture. Head over to sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code tincture. Save 35% on their tinctures. See their site and terms for conditions. Remember, these guys, great company, movement partners, donated tens of thousands of dollars. Strike Relief Fund, Refugee Resettlement, Planned Parenthood. They've involved in mutual aid up in Vermont during the floods. I could go on and on about them. sunsetlakesebede.com. Right now, use the coupon code tincture. Of course, our standard for everything else, left is best code works, but check it out. Now, quick break. Krystal Ball, co-host Krystal, Kyle, and friends, and Breaking Points. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report. Want to welcome back to the program Krystal Ball, co-host of Krystal, Kyle, and Friends, and of course, Breaking Points. Krystal, it's been, 4 days now, and 3 days. I don't know how you want to measure this, 3 or 4 days. It feels like it's been a month already. First thoughts on the new Trump administration?
I mean, I don't think this is a surprise to you guys, and it's certainly not a surprise to me, but he certainly confirmed in the first days that he's going to take the most maximalist, lawless approach that he possibly can. And I think it's a couple of the key indicators there are the blanket pardons, even of violent J6ers who assaulted police officers. Wildly unpopular. His own vice president was like, of course, violent ones should be in prison. So the fact that he did the blanket pardon with, a few commutations, I think that was an extraordinary marker. I think the executive order to quote unquote end birthright citizenship, which of course has already been tossed by a federal court. I think that's another marker of the maximalist approach. And then the third, you could pick many others besides, but the other one that has been just incredibly distressing and blackpilling to me was 2 days before inauguration, him launching his own shitcoin, making tens of billions of dollars off of his own supporters through just a brazen Ponzi pyramid scheme, and now exploring a digital asset reserve, which just means like using public resources and taxpayer funds to buy his own shitcoin, not to mention pump up the massive net worths of his, giant donors and oligarch friends. So yeah, there are no brakes on this car. Any of the previous minimal resistance that existed, whether from the opposition party, the Democrats, or from within his own party, people like the Jeff Flakes of the world. Obviously, the Supreme Court is very conservative now. But, he's been given blanket immunity as well. He doesn't have to face the voters again, most likely, we pray. So I don't know what is going to hold him back from doing whatever the hell he wants to do and whatever the hell Elon Musk and all the other broligarchs want to do as well.
Oligarchs is good. I'm going to steal that one.
The Broligarchs?
Forward. Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that
I
too.
don't know who coined that, but it was not me. But I know, yeah, it's been floating around. I think it's a pretty good term.
Yeah.
We had Jacob Silverman on this week to I couldn't. It just was impossible for me to wrap my head around like the whole meme coin thing. Like and I say this as someone who collected baseball cards, who collected coin, like every nerdy coins and all sorts of things that don't necessarily have an intrinsic more valuable than another, but like the meme coin thing is really impressive. You are really just packaging air and branding air, and
It's speculation for the sake of speculation, which feels like a way bigger section of our economy than is sustainable.
but
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I think all of crypto is fake and a scam. But at least with Bitcoin, there was like, oh, it's a new technology and you can use it one thing you can use it for is like evading sanctions. Okay, that's an actual use that we can, wrap our hands around. Money laundering. Okay.
Untraceable contracts on people if you want to have someone taken out.
There you go. At least it's a real world use, right?
Yep.
With these, there's not even a pretense. Like, it's just pure, brazen, upward transfer of wealth, extraction, fraud. And everyone's just like, yeah, this is fine. This is legal. It's insane to me. I genuinely, like, that's the thing that I think about, that I'm like, how does a society even recover from greenlighting this level of just mass sanctioned fraud by elites? How do you come back from that? Like, we are in such a late stage of capitalism that I can't even wrap my head around. So that one really threw me for a loop too, Sam.
Yeah, and I think the whole project really does seem to be, and I mean this in like sort of the broadest sense. And I don't think we've seen this, not in my lifetime anyways. Everything is geared towards extracting existing value that exists within our society. It is set to extract money from people, whether, maybe in return, some of these people get a sneaker worth, a fraction of what it was, but it's extracting money that way. It is essentially all of the the attacks on the administrative state is about extracting more from society in the form of more cancers, in the form of more food-borne illnesses, in the form of worker safety, whatever it is, and it all going to a sort of like increasingly narrow group of corporate benefactors, essentially. Like, all of this is just full-on extraction. Even his tariff stuff is really just going to be leveraged for it to get kickbacks. I mean, this is like a full-on. The mafia has moved into the neighborhood, and everybody's going to pay some form of protection money. And if the sporting goods shop needs a loan, we'll get a loan. But we're just going to be sucking stuff out of your company until it just dies. It's all a leverage buyout, it feels like.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And it's the levels of preposterousness, if that's a word, just boggle the mind, because at the same time you have this mass hardcore immigration crackdown, which is allegedly about, protecting people's jobs and making sure American workers are okay. At the same time, you're inviting Sam Altman and all these other AI tech barons to the White House to announce this big theoretical $500 billion Stargate project. Well, these guys now, can they accomplish this goal? I don't know, but they'll come out and tell you their plan is to eliminate all jobs, like to make all human labor useless. That is their plan, to completely transform all of society. Sam talks about rewriting the social contract. He also talks about how, there's a good chance that it's just going to destroy the world, but at least there'll be some good companies in the meantime. I mean, this is their words, not to mention the way that stuff is already being deployed in its current form. Is it, for the greater benefit of humanity? I'm not going to say there aren't any beneficial purposes. I use ChatGPT and now DeepSeek, actually, just like all the rest of them. But one of the primary ways it's been deployed was in the battlefield in Gaza to mass murder civilians.
Lavender, right?
That's right. And
yeah.
972 and DropSite got their hands on leaked documents that shows Microsoft, which is OpenAI, Sam Altman, that's their partner. Microsoft's biggest AI customer is the Israeli government. So this is what AI is being used for now, not to mention, algorithmically denying people healthcare, life-saving healthcare, not to mention Amazon using AI to fire people without a human even ever being involved or intervening whatsoever. So, of course, we know that this type of tech, when developed and leveraged by the capitalist class, is not going to be developed to benefit humanity. It's going to be developed to line their pockets, and their goal is to make most of humanity irrelevant.
Right, and that piece about the labor piece of AI, it benefits these AI barons to say, oh, they're going to become greater than humans, and it's almost like a sci-fi movie. Now, the practically what it's going to be used for is to cut labor costs for some of these companies. And like when we're talking about how it's all about extraction at this certain point in late stage capitalism, it really is about how we outsourced our manufacturing starting in like really the 70s in this neoliberal era. And so much of our economy in the 90s and on was concentrated in Silicon Valley and with these tech barons who they're up against the ceiling of the practical use that they can provide for people, right? Like Facebook and Instagram exist as utility, and they're not really getting many new signees, would be my guess. It's kind of at a saturation point. So what do you do when a whole major section of the economy, probably like the biggest industry that's concentrated in this country, is a lot of just hot air? All they have, then now it's AI, but it's really just about maintaining their market position. And they have found the perfect president to do that because he's just as corrupt as they are. But it's unsustainable because of the compounding effect also of the income and wealth inequality. This is just going to make it even worse at a rapid pace.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many like genuine civilization level crises, I feel like, coming to a head right now. There's the crisis you're talking about of this, fake extraction built economy. There's the political crisis under that too, which is effectively neoliberalism was about getting rid of any values and outsourcing them to the market. So if the market likes it, if it's good for the market, that's what our values are. And that's what leads to this current dystopian economic system that we have. Obviously, there's the climate crisis, which is becoming, increasingly unbearable. We're already at a point where, they just announced last year, once again, hottest year on record. Now we've crossed that 1.5 degree Celsius threshold. So those disasters are only going to be picking up steam. That, of course, fuels additional demands in terms of migration, which causes, fuels this reactionary political climate. And then you do have these, this mass inequality that has rendered democracy just, it's a silly word at this point. I really have come to the place where I feel like democracy and capitalism, they were not able to coexist, certainly not in the system that we have where it's no holds barred in terms of all money in politics and very, very few effectively meaningless limits. So that's part of what's so distressing in this moment is all of these pieces coming together. I sort of go back and forth about which one I'm most alarmed at the present.
Yeah, I want to get to that as to how you're managing, like in the context of what we do, like sorting this stuff out on a daily basis, like which fire is actually the more pressing one or the more relevant one. You mentioned like the wealth disparity and the sort of like threats to democracy. Aside from, we just played a clip of Russell Vogt saying we may not distribute the funds that the IRA calls for, which is really pretty fundamentally anti-democratic. I mean, there's a law that you're not supposed to ignore, but the level, and I know that, we've been throwing the word oligarchy around for a long time. I mean, and that Gillen's study, for 15 years, people have been talking about, like, when wealthy people's interests come before Congress and there's controversy, their desires win out. But the nakedness and the sort of specificity of the oligarch that we seem to have almost overnight, like, maybe over the course of the past 16 months, is incredible. I mean, when I'm having political conversation with people now, it's all about billionaires. Like it's not, what's the Speaker of the House doing? It's what's Musk doing versus Altman doing versus, Peter Thiel doing. Like, this is, it is a full-on naked thing. And the only difference is, and we keep saying this, is that, like, with Putin, he's got his cadre of oligarchs, except for one of them steps out of line, they end up having, stepping into an elevator shaft and there's no elevator there, or their planes seem to fall from the sky. I don't think Trump has that ability. Where does this, how does this end? Like, I mean, like, honestly, because, Democrats, maybe they'll get the message, maybe they won't, but they're like, well, we're going to forefront Mark Cuban and he'll come in. And Mark Cuban was taking that role in the Harris campaign, whether he had it or not, it's unclear, but he was certainly saying out there, like, nah, don't listen about the whole Lena Khan's gone.
And the rich. Lena Khan, she's not really going to do that stuff.
I mean, it's a problem.
Yeah,
it's
a problem.
I
mean, it is on a scale. Like, look, Democrats, I'm not letting them off the hook. They're complicit. They're the ones that also embraced this big money era, made it bipartisan, and made it very difficult for them to be able to criticize Trump's corruption, criticize the rise of this billionaire cadre in his midst. I mean, his first cabinet was the wealthiest cabinet in history, and this one dwarfs that by far, not to mention, the lineup on the dais behind him as he's giving his speech. Like, this is his administration. It is a level of control and brazenness that we've never seen. We have not seen before in American history. You could maybe go back to, like, the days of JP Morgan when the federal government was much smaller. Maybe there's an analogy there, but we've never seen this before. And Elon Musk specifically, not only is he the richest man on the planet, not only does he control a major communications network.
Platform. Yep.
Not only is he himself a public figure with a cult following, but he also is one of the largest federal government contractors, Pentagon contractors specifically, is in all kinds of legal and regulatory trouble with the government. I'm sure that's all, imminently going away, including alleged SEC violations, and labor violations, and environmental violations. But now he's been given this whole of government mandate to do whatever he wants. And, I know when Doge was first announced, people were like, oh, this is just some make work project. I've never really bought that, because to bring it back to Russ Vought, who's, going to be once again at the Office of Management and Budget, which is this, like, sort of, nerdy budgeting agency, but actually very powerful and very important. He was, behind Project 2025, and they spent the 4 years when they were out of power figuring out how they could maximize their use of power when they were back in government. Now, that looks like, of course, installing cronies across all agencies who are willing to follow even unlawful and unconstitutional orders. But it also looks like things that like what you were referring to, Sam, which is saying, yes, Congress passed those funds, but we don't actually believe we have an obligation to spend them. We don't believe in, it's called, I think, the Impoundment Control Act of 1970 something. We don't believe that was constitutional. So that means even if you want to spend money on the Department of Education, Congress, we can cut it at will because we're under no obligation to do that. Oh, you may want to spend money on food stamps, but we don't want to. So, we're just going to unilaterally slash that. Those are the sorts of powers that they are looking at exercising. So this is another way in which this Trump administration is different from the first one. They are much more organized, and they are much more focused on achieving radical, right-wing, libertarian, conservative goals in service of the oligarch cadre.
And I'll just add to that, they have 270 more judges than they did at the beginning of their administration last time, including the 6-3 Supreme Court. So their ability, the things that slowed their roll the first time, like you guys did not do the 60-day, period or comment period, or you don't have the authority to do this. I mean, we've seen examples, particularly out of the Fifth Circuit, of judges just basically twisting themselves into pretzels because they know, I mean, they're now part of this sort of like a feudal system. The way that they will rise up and go from, duke to prince or whatever it was back in the day is that they will, start pumping out these decisions that will not inhibit the administration. And
they're auditioning for Trump.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so there are just less institutional breaks and also even political ones, because when Musk out there, and Musk and Trump are going to have their arguments, but they're never going to break up because their incentives are just too well aligned.
That's what I think.
This whole thing that Musk is going to tire, or Trump is going to tire of Musk and get rid of him. I think that's honestly like, that's JV
That's 2016
Trump. Yeah,
resistance.
honestly, this time around, because Musk can literally deploy sums of money in these Senate or congressional races and maintain a discipline that we just have never seen in American politics.
It's why Joni Ernst is voting for Hegseth, right?
That's
because
right.
she's up in 2026
That's
and she's
right.
terrified of Musk.
And
And he doesn't even have to spend the money. Just the threat of the money
just
was
the threat of it.
Right.
very credible. Like
But-
he literally spent $250 million electing Trump. You think?
And
he
I
won't
think
drop
that's
tens of
actually,
millions to take
I
you
think
out?
that's a minimum. I think he
Yeah.
probably spent more. We just don't know about it. But that's the $250 million that we know of. And there's also, Harris had her like cadre of billionaires and millionaires, but there was a bunch of them. Like there were 3 people who provided Trump with something like $500 million of his billion that was spent. That's pretty concentrated. That's literally like a casual sort of like intimate dinner that you can have with these people.
That's exactly right.
And
That's
all Miriam
exactly right.
Adelson says is like the West Bank.
Right. And I guess, you talked a little bit about this, Krystal, but I'm wondering if you could expand on just like the fact that Musk owns this major communications platform and Zuckerberg now with his broccoli haircut on the frickin' Joe Rogan Experience, acting like he's a TikToker. They're all genuflecting. They all, I mean, this TikTok ban, if it goes through or if it's sold to somebody that Zuckerberg can work with, Instagram, that's their biggest competitor. Like there's a lot on the line. And of course, the antitrust lawsuit about their purchase of Instagram and WhatsApp. But the whole salute thing, it's not the number one story in the end. But I do feel like the reaction has been indicative of the immense challenges that we face in this corroded communications environment. This billionaire owns this tech platform, and he scared a lot of outlets out of even talking about the fact that he appeared to allegedly do a Sig Heil at the inauguration. And it doesn't really even matter what the truth is, right? His heart goes out to you, yes. It doesn't matter what the truth is to an extent, because his fans and that alt-right, like almost Gamergate 4chan community that Bannon empowered and saw as the vision for Trump's base, and it's played out. It's what's happened. They're all they're post-truth people. They're postmodernists that believe that you just make your truth by speaking it, and there's no objective truth.
That's
I
right.
feel like because our politics are so captured by big money, because people feel like their voice is not heard democratically, and I include Biden in that, by not, stepping aside for a primary, that made people's voices feel like they weren't heard, and he didn't hear them on Gaza either. I feel like Trump's greatest accomplishment is the nihilism that he's engendered, and the fact that there's no objective truth and people don't know how to use their power in our society anymore, democratically or with their voice, because it's so corroded.
And that means that all the old sort of standard values of like, sorry, the dog is like demanding attention.
That's okay.
All the old standard values of like humility or shame or empathy or mercy, in the words of the bishop, who they were so angry dared to like preach this very basic Christian message of Christian tolerance. All those virtues are kind of out the window. It's like, make the strongest survive, and the biggest liar, and the person who's willing to be the most shameless, and just go out there and get yours. I mean, that's the crypto ethos too, right? It's like, it's just no holds barred. Might makes right. You see this in foreign affairs as well, with what Israel's been able to get away with over the previous year. And it feels very much like that is the era that we live in. And part of what is so depressing, and I'm like we're going to keep fighting, and you never know where opportunity and hope presents itself. Like, there's always openings that emerge. But part of what is so depressing too is the level of capitulation, the lack of really, the Democratic Party is just so pathetic, right? They're ready to just capitulate and do kinder, gentler fascism by and large. Like, that seems to be the direction that they are going to go in. They're going to sign on to the Lake and Riley Act and swear that they're truly border hawks like Trump, and effectively adopt his worldview, sort of like Clinton adopted Ronald Reagan's worldview and consolidated the neoliberal era. So with some exceptions, like I would say AOC has been great, Bernie Sanders has been great. There are some exceptions, but overall, the Democratic Party has not had a credible organized resistance. Obviously, the media organizations are all like terrified. CNN is shifting Jim Acosta to the middle of the night or whatever. You had the George Stephanopoulos, ABC settled that big lawsuit. You have Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, that whole situation. You even actually had a story out today. I don't know if you guys saw this, Columbia Journalism Review talked to Paul Krugman. He left the New York Times because he felt like he was being throttled and censored there. Was that part of a pre-Trump capitulation as well? Joe and Mika going down to Mar-a-Lago. So even your like liberal style MSNBC resistance is by and large dead and gone. There are so few voices that are out there to really point out what is going on and offer, most importantly, offer an alternative vision, offer a different fork in the road that leads us away from authoritarianism and fascism and constant climate horror and turmoil. It's difficult to see how we really get it together and really have a sort of forceful resistance against these powers.
You answered some of like what I wanted to talk about at the end here, and how we push back on this. I think there's a little more time to develop, and obviously, it's bleak. I think it's going to get a little bleaker before it gets a little bit less bleak. And that's what, we're really aiming high for less bleakness by, over the course of the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about like that, your approach to this. I mean, you bring it up a little bit in terms of like what's going on with the media. There's a lot of these outfits that capitulate. There's, like Bezos with his endorsement. That was the first sign to me. It's not like the Washington Post endorsement was going to make a difference anyways. But the idea that his first reaction is like, okay, we're going to capitulate. We're going to just make it clear. And I think CBS is even also thinking about giving them money from an interview, giving Trump money, defamation money from an interview, because Harris, as the candidate, said something that Trump said was not real.
Oh my God.
And there's no case there, obviously, but they're just like, $13 million or whatever it is. It's just, it's a tribute to Caesar. But
yeah,
what
was it? Is it Amazon that paid Melania $40 million for her documentary, right?
Everywhere. This is coming at a time where, as much local media has been, falling apart for years and disappearing and this and that, we're at the worst ebb of it. Maybe it gets worse from here. How, and you mentioned CNN and MSNBC are about to be spun off by their parent companies. They were playing this in a while. So CNN is not going to have is going to be, it's like becoming quickly just like an online is going to end up being like mostly an online thing, maybe 3 or 4 years from now. MSNBC is not going to have the NBC resources anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's going to be a completely different sort of animal in 2 or 3 years. And so this within this like sort of media environment, right? Like you have a couple of very big shows. How do you guys, and you can address sort of the media environment, but also like are you sitting back and saying, because we're sort of working on this and nibbling around the edges, but as you know, it's very difficult when you're doing a daily show to be able to step back and take a sort of a 6-month, 12-month, whatever look at how are you going about saying like, this strain of stuff is the most important, right? Because the naturalized citizen thing, it's hugely important, but it also seems to be blatantly unconstitutional. So it will attract a lot of attention, but may not go anywhere. Meanwhile, Russell Vogt, the least sexiest of cabinet members or Senate confirmees, he may be one of the most important people in the government. I mean, so how do you decide, like, do you have a formula? What is it? What are you guys doing to sort of assess what's the most important thing to follow when we're getting news like out of a fire hydrant?
Yeah, it's not an easy task on a day-to-day basis as you're trying to plan a show, et cetera. I think probably tying together how so many of these crises are driven by inequality and oligarchy. That way you have a coherent frame that people can really wrap their heads around. It's something people are already deeply, deeply concerned about. I think it's a real Achilles heel for Trump specifically and the Republican Party. I mean, the imagery on Inauguration Day, like a coherent political movement should be able to really use that over and over again. But he's going to disappoint. Egg prices are already going up. Tariffs are going to spike prices even higher. If you truly have mass deportation, even just the threat of mass deportation is likely to spike food prices higher. They are not going to do anything to deal with the cost of living crisis at all. They're likely to make it much, much worse at the same time as giving tax cuts to the rich. I think hammering home that message around oligarchy and using that as the political framework is probably the best direction to go in. And obviously AI ties into that. The climate crisis ties into that. People's just day-to-day, living and material conditions tie into that. So that's how I'm thinking about it. I mean, I'm trying to be a little more vocal and a little bit more, I guess, maybe aggressive in both my social media and how I approach the breaking points and just the way I'm articulating things in general, because I think that fight is required right now and the stakes are incredibly high. And I've been heartened to see you guys, like your channel's doing great. Kyle's channel is taking off, like David Dole, Mike Figueredo, people who are, have a really great message and are not cowed and are, not afraid and bending the knee, et cetera. That's been very heartening to me because I think probably the most important project right now, and this is something I think you guys have long done a great job at, a better one than I have, is taking liberals who are right now disaffected and helping to radicalize them into a true leftist worldview. And there's a lot of liberal disappointment with MSNBC and Washington Post and the Pod Save Bros and the New York Times, and their political leaders have let them down. Like when those base voters were talking about fascism and saw Trump as a fascist threat, they actually meant it. Whereas many of these media figures and outlets were just mouthing the words to garner an audience. And so, even as I am largely quite depressed about the moment that we're in, I do think there is a large opportunity there for channels like yours and, to the extent I have a voice out there as well, to try to articulate this alternative approach to combating fascism, which of course reaches into our own American history with FDR and the New Deal. And obviously of many people now that Bernie Sanders can never run for president again, being like, oh, it turns out that guy had some good ideas, et cetera. But to me, that's the project that kind of gives me life and keeps me going right now in this moment, which is very grim. And I will say one thing just to put out there on a hopeful note, as I know you guys need to wrap up and move on, but Branko Marcetic had a good column in for Jacobin about Trump, yes, he has a lot of power right now, but there are also a lot of weaknesses in the coalition. He did only win by 1.5 points. Like, he's coming into office with what for him is a pretty good approval rating, but historically for presidents, including Joe Biden, is quite a low approval rating. He's a lame duck. And so, this could end up being kind of the peak of his cultural and political power. So that's certainly a possibility as well as things play out. One thing I'll be watching is we mentioned that federal court decision on the birthright citizenship. They immediately smack it down. One thing we'll be looking to too is, like, does he adhere to that? Because since he has immunity, even if it went up to the Supreme Court, it's also possible that he says, you in what army? Right. So those are some of the things that I'll be watching out for too, is how far he's willing to push the bounds of the power that he has.
I mean, I think going into this, they knew they had 2 years. They had 2 years. This Congress, this House, this Senate, that's, maybe they're wrong. They may have 4 years of it, but they go into it with 2 years. So they're going to try and jam everything into this thing. And I think, I hope you're right. I think Trump's political power may be fleeting, but once they get into these, once they destroy the civil service, like, to rebuild that, and you live down in that area, like, you're going to start seeing, like, neighbors going, like, I'm out of this business. I'm no longer working at the EPA as a lawyer anymore. Like, I'm going to, or like, they're just, to go in and demoralize, like, the job of going in and demoralizing an agency has to be, if you are a sadistic and hateful conservative, the funnest thing in the world to do, because you can't fail almost. It's I'm just going in with an iron suit to do demo in this apartment building. And it's like, yeah, maybe I'll do it in an efficient way. Maybe I won't, but some things I want to smash that mirror and take a Sawzall to this couch, and that's it. I mean, it's going to be ugly, I think.
And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy too, because then they can turn around. Oh, you want to grow the government? Look at how ineffective the government is. It's
100%.
Like, yeah, because you stripped it down.
Yep.
So there's nothing left. So of course it can't deliver for people, because you destroyed it. You intentionally destroyed it. Avian flu, we didn't even mention that. Another thing is they're, attacking public health agencies and getting ready to install RFK Jr., et cetera. There's a lot to be concerned about there too.
Yep. Well,
on that note,
well, plenty to talk about.
No, but it's important. I think, the fact that you and Kyle are, like, resisting so aggressively, the disaffected liberal thing too is important, where I want our commentary on our end to be both, like, intersectional. I think that's and defensive in on every front, in terms of not throwing any group over the bus, right? And I think that it's a different throwing every group is being thrown over the bus.
Actually,
yes. And I think that's another thing I'm trying to focus on as well. And we'll see. But I appreciate you coming on today, Krystal. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Sorry, I'm having a coughing moment here. I'm just so overcome with emotion at getting to talk to you guys.
Appreciate
all good.
Appreciate the talk. Thanks so much. All right, folks. We're going to take I want to do this. Let's do this DEI thing, because this is important. And let me see if I can find this executive order. Well, I have it here. And
what are you looking for?
Bradley, before we start on this, Google Executive Order 14035. You may have to, I don't know if you're going to be able to find it as a, because they had to pull it down. But starting with the Biden administration, I think it was literally his first day in office, he signed Executive Order 13, it'll look like this. He signed Executive Order 13985. And then in June of 2021, he signed Executive Order 14035. That entitled Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility in the Federal Workforce. In 1965, LBJ signed a law that said, executive order that said, you cannot discriminate, federal government, you cannot discriminate when you give out federal contracts.
Yeah. And basically every president since has just kept that executive order in place.
Because it would be wrong, I think we can all agree, well, maybe not some of us, that you should not specifically deny a black-owned construction firm a federal contract because it's owned by a black guy or a black woman or a white woman, or a Latino woman, or somebody, who is handicapped in some fashion, have some, physical challenge, or, and this is basically what we've been living under. Executive order, and then in 2021, Biden issues this executive order 14035. And this is the print version of it. Basically, I've got a.
It's unfortunately been, I think, taken down from.
It has been taken down. You got to go into the Wayback Machine.
Down.
They did took it down.
That's.
But the executive order 14035 was basically to reestablish a coordinated government-wide initiative to promote diversity and inclusion in the federal workforce and expand its scope to include equity and accessibility. Provide agencies with information, resources, and a methodology to assess the current state of DEIA in their workforce. Issue a government-wide DEIA strategic plan, including a framework to address workplace harassment and data-driven approach to increase transparency and accountability, et cetera, et cetera. What does this mean in practice? Data collection. Review existing policies and provide guidance to improve collection of workforce demographic data. In other words, who's working for us? Do we have a department where it's 99% white men? Or for that matter, is it 99% black women? Either way, that would be a problem. Promoting paid internships. Why is this important? Because generally internships only go and are taken by the sons and daughters of wealthy people. And we don't want just wealthy people working in government. We want people of low income to have these opportunities too.
And then just generally, interns should be paid.
Interns should be paid, but it's also promoting them. So issue guidance to increase the availability of paid internships, fellowships, and apprenticeships to reduce reliance on unpaid internships and similar programs and improve outreach to recruitment of individuals from underserved communities. In other words, if your dad is not a lawyer or a doctor or an insurance salesman or somebody who's making a ton of money, or your mom for that matter, they may not have connections to these agencies or to people who know people who know people. And this is to go out into communities, low income communities, maybe black communities, maybe Latino communities, maybe Asian communities, and contact schools, contact whatever, and say, we want to increase the awareness that this exists here so that we can get a diverse group of people in. And that doesn't mean this isn't still merit-based to the extent that that means anything. You still got to be qualified, whatever that means, to work as an intern. But the idea is to get more, essentially, make sure your flyers are going to all around town instead of just in one section of town. professional development and advanced training and learning, issue guidance for tracking demographic data for professional development programs, implement increased DEIA training, issue related guidance and best practices, basically to figure out how to do this type of stuff, advancing equity for employees with disabilities. So assess current hiring practices, evaluate equity in employment. In other words, are we paying people with disabilities what we pay other people? Are we making sure that we're making them the opportunity to have the same jobs? Are we dealing with improve the process for requesting reasonable accommodations? In other words, like maybe if there's somebody who can't use the bathrooms the way that they're structured, they need a bigger stall or whatever it is. Let's come up with a process in which people can ask for this stuff without it being like some type of, a crap show, as it were. This seems to be all just like sort of basic human consideration, but also, fairness, common sense. We shouldn't have to make, somebody who's like, someone, metaphorically jump through hoops if they're not able to use the bathroom in an easy way because of some type of physical disability. Improve equitable access to employee services and health medical benefits, update employee identification standards, expand availability of non-binary facilities, and mitigate barriers to security clearance. In other words, if someone's trans, if someone identifies in, some other way, just make it easier for them to get to work. This has nothing to do with like hiring only gay people or hiring only trans people. It's just that if you have someone who's there with these type of needs, just provide them and figure out how to do it in an efficient way. Pay equity. Review government-wide regulations and guidance to address any pay inequities and report recommendations to advance equal pay. If white men are getting underpaid systemically in our government, we should find that.
Right.
And fix it. And if white women are getting paid unequally throughout our government, we should find that and fix it. Black women, black men,
yes,
gay people, whatever, we should find it and fix it. Evaluate whether formerly incarcerated individuals face any barriers in accessing federal employment opportunities and consider establishing new hiring authorities. Basically, outreach to people who are eligible to get federal jobs because they've done their time, and it will help rehabilitate them or help with their rehabilitation if they have jobs. It's not, like they're not getting jobs they're not qualified for. But this is all just basic stuff. That's it right there. Yeah, keep that in our reserve because we're going to need that down the road. So that's what it is. DEI is not some type of like DEIA, I should say. It's not some type of like, we're only going to hire black people here for this agency. This is not about quotas or affirmative action. It is actually about dealing with the workforce as it exists now. And about making sure that when we put up a sign that says job offered, that we're not just putting it up in the, student union at Harvard or at Yale, or we're not just putting it up in the offices of the Heritage Foundation, or, for that matter, whatever the wishful thinking Democratic Party one was. We're putting up this sign everywhere. Low income people. Black people, white people, Latino people, everybody gets a shot at these jobs. We welcome their applications. There's nothing about lowering standards.
Right. But that's essentially what they want diversity to mean. They want it to mean that if you aren't just hiring the right people, which usually they mean white people, if you're thinking about those kinds of things like diversity or equity or inclusion, that is flying in the face of the hierarchies that make us great. Like conservatives inherently believe that hierarchies are both natural and also just, and that anything that tries to get in the way of the natural racial selection process is both cumbersome, annoying, and Pollyannish on the Democrat side. And they're trying to make it so that when you see maybe like rich white men all over the place in power, that is how people perceive it, is that they deserve to be there. And anything that tries to systemically address it is unnatural and probably un-American.
So understand this DEIA stuff. Within each agency, there's a small department that's in charge of basically setting up these systems that we just discussed. And across every agency in our government, they got this letter. And we've gotten at least a half a dozen of them from people who work in the government who are listeners to the show. This is from NASA. Dear agency employees, we're taking steps to close all DEIA offices and end all DEIA-related contracts in accordance with President Trump's executive orders titled Ending Radical and Wasteful Government DEI Programs and Preferencing in Initial Recessions of Harmful Executive Orders and Actions. These programs divided Americans by race, wasted taxpayer dollars, and resulted in shameful discrimination. This is all nonsense. This is all nonsense. Now, I'm not talking about how, what's happening at your, the company you work for. I don't know what's happening at the company you work for. But in terms of the government, this is the way that it is to deal with existing workforces and provide more opportunity to apply to jobs, period. Mostly interns. We are aware of some efforts by some in government to disguise these programs by using coded or imprecise language. If you are aware of a change in any contract description or personnel position description since November 5, 2024, to obscure the connection between the contract and DEIA or similar ideologies, please report all facts and circumstances to DEIA-truth@opm.gov within 10 days. There will be no adverse consequences for timely reporting this information. However, failure to report this information within 10 days may result in adverse consequences. Okay. Think about getting this at your job. Put aside, we got it also, just show. We got it from the Defense Health Agency, more or less the same thing. We got it from the Air Force. We got it from where else? DHS.
We got DHS, and there was one. There's also one. I can once.
Yeah, we got all these mailed in, but it's going out to everywhere in the government. Aside from this not meaningfully in any way reducing government spending, I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
This is not going to change the hiring practices outside of there. It will be more swampy and crony hiring. That's the only thing that this does. It decreases the pool of applicants. But this other part about you better tell your friends, look around in your agency, and we want you to start tattling on people. This stuff is the stuff that authoritarian governments are made out of. This stuff is the way to demoralize these workers. What we're watching,
traumatize them, as Vogt would say.
100%.
Yep.
This is
turn on your fellow worker.
This is page 1 of chapter 1 in their attempt to strip these agencies of any institutional knowledge, of any long-term civil servants. This is all part of their Schedule F program, where they're going to replace as many of these people as they can with political appointees. Now, remember, if you have no obligation to go outside of a very small cadre of people to hire, it's going to be much easier for them to, it's going to be like, there is going to be no friction in bringing in all of those resumes they have at the Heritage Foundation, where it wasn't about merit, it was about what groups have you been a part of in your college career that suggest you're in favor of Trump. That's it.
Yeah.
When you want to talk about like their notion of DEI hiring, which is you're favoring one group over another. That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
DEIA specifically says, like, we're not putting up barriers to some people getting in. And what they're doing is not only are we building these barriers, we're building them taller and thicker and wider.
So that email address, what was it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
go down.
only people internally.
DEIA truth at opm.gov. I mean, anybody can email that.
I guess anybody in theory could email that email address. Just interesting to note.
I mean, that's what's going on here. So it is just the first step in driving civil servants out of their jobs. No, longtime civil servants are going to get booted out because they're closing these, and they've put all these, any DEIA offices. They've suspended their working in these agencies, but that's a nominal amount of people and who have been working in the government for 3 or 4 years. The real thing is putting people on notice. If you don't start telling on your fellow workers, we're gonna F you up. And this is to begin to demoralize, and as you say, Russ votes traumatize federal workers. They want to destroy the functioning federal government and replace all these people with Trump cronies. Because again, job number one, extracting from our air, our land, our people, their health. It's all about extraction of whatever asset we have as a country, convert it into dollars and put it in one of their friends' bank account.
We heard, we had Anel Sheline on. We had and have heard testimonies from like Lily Greenberg Call and other State Department officials and government officials that resigned under Biden over the genocide in Gaza. And particularly with Anel, she was a State Department person, and she talked about how basically she had a lot of her colleagues that were trying to get the ear of the people at the very top to say, like, this is horrible, doing dissent cables, trying to get heard. And her resignation and others were because it became clear that they were unable to do their jobs. Now just think about that dynamic, not just on the issue of Israel, because that was what was at issue within the State Department in that example. And there were other State Department workers doing a bunch of other work on other areas of the globe. Expand that thought to every other government agency, what that's going to look like when people who are tasked and whose lives have been dedicated to this specific area of public service, that they now under this administration know that they are going to be unable to do their jobs in any real way. How many more resignations are we going to see? What is that chilling effect going to be like? It's going to be one of the more destabilizing
It's going to be huge
events in our country's history if they're able to be successful.
People want us to reiterate DEIA. The A is for accessibility. Steve Austin says that includes physically challenged and older workers.
Yep.
And it's not about, nobody's going to, physical therapy clinics and saying, hey, anybody want a job? This is about people who apply to these jobs How can we make things more accessible? Yes, it's going to cost a little bit more to install railings in the bathroom, or to make sure that when we build this next federal building that there's a stall, or that there's a ramp, or whatever it is.
This kleptocratic project and this oligarch far-right project is very threatened by the idea that there are people who want to go into government work as actual civil servants and dedicate their lives to that instead of going to the private sector where they can cash in. Like, it's the same reason why student debt is a disciplinary tool, because if you're loaded up with student debt, you're more likely to go into the private sector and take a corporate job and work to reproduce wealth. There is like a distaste and an anger in like this kind of anarcho-capitalist vision that I think they're trying to deploy. Elon Musk is a huge fan of what Milei is doing. And in Argentina, now 53% of the population is in poverty, if you just want a bit of a preview of what they're going to try to do here. It is about might makes right and greed is good, and not the ironic way. We're being run by the guys that thought Gordon Gekko was a hero.
Yep.
And that is going to be the center of their attacks on these civil servants.
All right, Vermont Ben just said, come on, Sam, let's do a freebie Friday. I guess we haven't done one in a long time.
Yeah. Can I take a break, though, really quick, then, if we're going to do that, please?
All right.
You know.
Suit yourself.
I haven't perfected
I'll read
your
some
bladder
IMs.
Control method.
I'll read some IMs. Well, it takes a couple of days, but like if I, but once you start drinking, drinking like 2 of these during a show, the first couple days, you got to go. That. But after a while, your body starts to more efficiently deal with all the fluids.
Sam's water retention is coming back.
I'm building it back up. Building it back up, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Atris. Sam, regarding the executive orders, I work for the Treasury Department as a section chief and have since 2016. My area of expertise is DEI. I want to give you some insight into the behavior we're already seeing from the executive level regarding capitulation to Trump's EOs. My area code is 410. If you want to take my call, I can call in after 2 p.m. once I'm done video. Oh, come on. Was that serious? I don't know if it was. That was funny, but I'm not going to. Kowalski from Nebraska. I was at the Farm Service Agency this morning. Everyone is very confused as to why we don't have a new agricultural bill yet. It's a big logistical headache. Dave from Jamaica. We need less libs and more people moving leftward. Liberalism is dead and gone. Zuckerberg got hit with the Dominican ray. Donut Man. John Husted is deep with First Energy bribery in Ohio. Rooster knows all. Who's Rooster? I don't know. Greg from Arkansas. Worlds collide. I'm a massive fan of Kyle Kalinske, so having Krystal on puts us one step closer to progressive unity. Shout out to Secular Talk and Krystal, Kyle, and friends. Kyle was on like a month ago.
Yeah. We had him on with Emma when you were out.
Tomo Flink. Happy Casual Friday, folks. If anyone thinks that African Americans are safe from mass deportations, a few years ago, Britain deported black people who were British citizens back to Caribbean countries that they hadn't lived in for 50 years due to most of the Caribbeans being part of the British Empire until the 70s. These people were born British citizens and therefore legally entitled to live in Britain, but they still got deported. Dizzle McFizzle. Don't you get it, Sam? Trapping people in poverty is the point. They're trying to kill all of us. So 5 people can add a 0 to their bank accounts. I feel like I've lost all hope. Hang in there. Something's going to happen in the next 6 to 8 months. Maybe before then, maybe slightly after. We're going to be like, oh, well, things are looking up.
It's also exacerbated by the fact that we have no leader of the Democratic Party right now. I just want to be clear. Like, In 2016, I always thought Bernie would run again, and that was like what was getting me through.
Right.
Maybe AOC will. We'll see. She's basically the only one choosing to like actually message and lead right now. It seems like.
Majority retort reform. Get your MR dog collars now for all your pups in your life. Collars measure 20 inches in width, which will probably fit comfortably on a good boy or less comfortably if he's a bad boy. Not sure what that means. Calling Sam a pistachio farmer because of how much water he's hoarding in his bladder. Okay.
Or a camel.
Well, you will be holding on for less than an hour if you call in. No guarantees we'll take your call at 646-257-3920, but you will have an opportunity to participate in this program if you call in. You will have an opportunity to have an opportunity. Let me put it that way. What should we go with here? I mean, all of this is just an absolute garbage crap show. Oh, here we go. Hey, folks, do you like oranges?
I do.
What about lemons?
I do.
Limes?
I like lemons and limes.
NBC News, Bay Area. This is, I would assume, Northern California. Is that what it is? Has some bad news for you. Now, if you're an American, there's going to be a great opportunity for you opening up. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of Americans racing to pick these citrus fruits at hopefully increased pay because they can't be lorded over, with their immigration status. And of course, get ready to pay for more of your oranges and lemons, which, frankly, we should pay more for stuff.
And
is so that people can get a working, a livable wage. But rounding up immigrants is one way to do it. The other way to do it would be to give them legal status so they could unionize. But here is a news report from NBC News.
It's the peak of the citrus harvest season in Kern County right now, but the industry is taking a hit after immigration agents conducted several operations last week targeting undocumented immigrants with criminal records. The California Farm Bureau reports that the action made some ag workers too afraid to show up for work, bringing the area's citrus harvest to a virtual halt.
Definitely, we are certainly very concerned about what is happening and how that is unfolding.
The Monterey County Farm Bureau says it is keeping a close eye on the developments in the Central Valley. Harvest season in the Salinas Valley begins in late April. The Farm Bureau says just the threat of deportations could be enough to deter many of the 55,000 migrant workers the valley needs to operate during harvest season.
They're not going to show up for work, and that means crops will remain in the field and not be harvested and probably lost at that point.
The Farm Bureau says that could lead to higher food prices.
They were called essential workers during the pandemic when our nation needed them, and now they are asking us to be there for them when they need us.
The Farm Bureau joined Monterey County leaders on Wednesday to pledge to do what they can to protect workers and their families.
Con instrucciones precisas de nuestra presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum.
The Mexican Consul General says consulates across the country have a direct order from the President of Mexico to assure the basic rights of undocumented immigrants aren't violated.
Our growers remain concerned.
Just to be clear, the reports on the ground say that this idea that the ICE is just going after migrants with criminal records is total BS.
Yep.
They are harassing everyone they can, and they're finding migrants who are undocumented, regardless of whether they've been convicted or accused of any type of crime. And I will remind you that it is not a criminal act to enter the country without documents, any more so than speeding is a criminal act. It's a civil violation. That's what's going on. We're going to feel it soon with these prices going up.
Yeah.
But again, don't make the mistake of saying that, like, well, because we won't provide a path to citizenship and allow folks like this to have their rights as citizens or workers, and to collectively bargain, is justification for rounding them up and sending them out. If we really want to do this, let's go to those farmers who hired undocumented workers, and let's lock them up and see what the dynamic is, how different that would be.
Well, remember they tried to do that in Florida, and all of those business owners freaked out because they were like, we're okay with you holding over the immigration status, holding that over our workers' heads so we can pay them sub-minimum wage and potentially abuse them. But you're going to come after us if we hire undocumented people? And then quickly the Republicans in Florida just scuttled that part of what they were trying to do.
Here is CBS on Wednesday night. CNN, speaking with Greg Mose, a South Dakota-based dairy farmer. And he's already... wait a second. What's going on here? Go ahead.
What percentage of your workers are not U.S. born?
Probably half.
About half?
Yeah.
How many hours does this go on?
It's 24 hours a day. You know, we could milk 8 hours a day, but it wouldn't be feasible or profitable for us to produce milk.
So you need workers like this year-round?
Yes. Yes.
Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, her farm is just a few miles away. This farmer who voted for her, who voted for Trump, who still supports them, doesn't believe that they would round up immigrants and ask them for their immigration status, because it's an open secret that farms in this state are held up by undocumented workers. Are you worried, like some of your
Pause
other
it for 1
farmers,
second.
that
Now, here's the open secret she's not telling you, is that farm down the road, Kristi Noem's farm, is not somehow living in some different bubble from every other farm there, but she knows she's got undocumented immigrant workers there. That's why that guy is so confident they're not going to round up his undocumented immigrant workers, because he knows that she, down the road in her farm, has undocumented immigrant workers. Now, CBS could tell us this.
CNN.
It would let's just drive down the road. Hey, I wonder if Kristi Noem has undocumented immigrant workers. Anybody in the car think that? You know, we're out here, they flew us out here, maybe. No, forget it. Go ahead.
undocumented workers. Are you worried, like some of your other farmers, that if there were a mass roundup of undocumented migrants, that you might lose workers? You might not have enough workers.
Well, the question I asked, how are they going to do that? Within 2 days, we will not have food. There will not be food anywhere.
2 days?
Yes. That's why I predict nobody will be filling the shelves, nobody will be producing food. If we once have to shut down and be gone, it's never coming back.
Does Governor Noem understand that?
I would think so.
You have a lot of faith that they're not going to do what they're saying.
That's pretty much what I'm thinking. So we have to trust in our officials that are put in place.
So wait, let me try and understand, because I really want to reach out to this farmer and understand him. He voted for people that he's got to trust, and he's going to trust that they're not going to do what they say they were going to do. The story is this guy knows they're not coming for his workers because they'd have to come for Kristi Noem's down the road. That's the story.
Unless they do come forward. I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? I don't know if that's true. It doesn't necessarily even...
There's going to be carve-outs.
Of course there will be carve-outs.
I mean, like, they may be coming for people, in a different state, or they may be coming for people, 200, 400 miles away, but they ain't coming around here, because I'm pretty confident. I trust Kristi Noem. She wants to keep her farm going, too.
But it's a little bit of like a replay of that fight with Vivek Ramaswamy and the genuine white nationalists in the Trump kind of circle, is that they, Elon Musk and maybe it wasn't Ramaswamy, it was Elon Musk. Elon was saying that he was in favor of those visas because there needs to be more high skilled workers in his tech industry, basically, right? And he can pay them things he probably couldn't pay Americans to do the same job. But the white nationalists are like, we don't really care. We want them out. We want them out anyway. We want anybody out that isn't like ethnically pure in the way that we view it. So who wins the day in the end? I'm not necessarily sure. Probably the capitalists, but I don't know. It's hard to predict what the effect is going to be, because it could be the same thing in South Dakota with this farmer that they're seeing in California, or they're probably going to go after blue states first, is what it's going to be, I guess. Now that I'm working it out loud, we were saying this yesterday. Eric Adams was on Tucker Carlson's show and was saying that he was being politically targeted by the Biden administration because he raised concerns about immigration. And if you are an undocumented person in New York City, you should not think that Eric Adams is going to protect you. Like, I got to be real here. Try to look at the circumstances of where you're living. Watch out for that, because I think Adams in particular, of all of these big city mayors where they're going to do these raids, he's the one that's most susceptible right now to capitulating to Donald Trump, because he needs that pardon.
Yep. I think that's true. Bingo dango. Worcester and Fitchburg schools are resisting ICE and distributing info to students about their rights. ICE are waiting at school bus stops to nab kids and family members. Jesus. What scumbags. I hope somebody's got video of that. Just horrible human beings. New York is a problem. Because they're coming after sanctuary cities, and they're, look, they may, who knows what kind of restrictions Trump and the Republicans are going to put on aid to California. There could be a whole host of restrictions that are like this. Now getting over of ICE raids in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We're going to see this all over. We're going to see this all over the country. And yesterday, Democrats, a bunch anyways, what was it, like 46?
48 in the House voted for the Lake and Riley Act.
And to be clear, that not only empowers ICE to go after people, immigrants who have been accused of a crime.
Right.
And really, I don't know what the definition is of accused of a crime.
It's charged. We spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but it sets up an incentive for anybody that may have a dispute with their neighbor, that may not like someone down the street or whatever it is, may have lent somebody money, or maybe...
We saw this in Afghanistan.
Right. Like, it incentivizes people to rat out their neighbors or someone in their community, falsely accuse them of a crime. And do you think the police, who even like when they have to take somebody to trial, they often rush through that process just to get a conviction, even when the burden of proof is much higher and you're actually using our legal system? You think they're not going to just like be okay with, a lot of cops are going to just be okay with being able to say, yeah, we made an arrest and deported that person, case closed, notch on my belt? That's going to happen quite frequently under this act.
Well, also, you levy a false charge at somebody, they get deported. There's no accountability for your false charge.
Exactly.
We never know. No, I'm not even talking from the cop's perspective.
Right.
Like, this dude stole my watch. You'll never end up, it's going to be a mess. Here is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the floor of the House, talking at the on what one of the big incentive structures is for some of the Republicans pushing this. It's like in the Iraq War, where Paul Wolfowitz said, weapons of mass destruction was, and I am editorializing here, the lie that we could all agree on, he said. some people wanted to have a project where they could create a utopian Milton Friedman society. Others wanted to do this because it supposedly empowered Israel. Others wanted to do it so that they could have hegemony over Iraqi oil fields. And the thing that came together to sell was this notion of, weapons of mass destruction. With this immigration stuff, it's really like, some people are doing it because it gives them, they're playing off of xenophobia. Maybe some people care about it's going to workers in my community, or they're not going to have to compete for construction jobs or something like that. Or, but there are, a cohort of Republicans who are like, well, this is just a cash play for me.
Give this money, no doubt. I want folks at home to look at what members of Congress are invested in private prison companies who receive this kind of money, and look at the votes on this bill. It is atrocious that people are lining their pockets with private prison profits in the name of a horrific tragedy and the victim of a crime. It is shameful. It is absolutely shameful. And Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude with this. In a few months, there are members of Congress who voted for this bill who are going to pretend they didn't know about all the bad things that are going to happen because of it. So when a private prison camp opens in your town, when a dreamer...
Time has expired. I yield the gentlelady an additional 30 seconds.
So when a private prison camp opens in your town and they say, we didn't know this was going to happen, know that they did, and they voted for it. When a dreamer is disappeared from your classroom, when the President of the United States destroys what is left of the Constitution as he's announced in this attack on birthright citizenship, they will all say, we didn't know this was coming. And I want the American people to know that they did. This vote represents it. And with that, I yield back. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Yep.
They benefit many from mass incarceration directly via private prisons and the police state and the militarization of our police. And then they also profit from it indirectly, which is that, hey, wealth and income inequality, the fact that rent is through the roof and you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have much savings, you could be a health scare away from going bankrupt. That is because of the immigrants. It's not because we have slashed taxes for the wealthy precipitously over the past few decades. It's not because there's wealth concentrated at levels that almost rival pre-revolutionary France. It's not that. It's just these other people that you can demonize. So they profit from it directly, as she says, but also they profit from demonizing immigrants because they don't have to actually do anything to address income and wealth inequality.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 717 area code. Folks, if you have called in, I want to hear just from callers maybe who haven't called in the past. Wait, why didn't that work? Calling from a 717 area code. There we go. 717.
Hi, this is Keith from Chicago.
Keith from Chicago. Have you ever called in before?
First time calling. I started listening back in the COVID days.
There you go. That's what I wanted to hear. Welcome to the program, Keith. What's on your mind?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Sorry I haven't been able to listen as much recently, but have you guys talked about the NIH kind of shutdown that's going on?
Well, it came up in the course of all the things that are going on. The NIH has basically been frozen, essentially. I don't know how else really to articulate that. This is not to be confused with the freeze on outside communication between health agencies. The NIH, the funding has basically been put on pause, right?
Yeah, and I can have a personal, this is anecdotal, but I'm a postdoc researcher in medicinal chemistry, focused specifically in antibiotics, and I just got told today that I'm probably going to be let go here in the near future because we have unsure funding, and we do have a grant that covers my research, but they're anticipating that with the lack of communication, they can't guarantee my contract going further. And I mean, I got told like 2 hours ago. So, well, you guys were the first person I was like, I know I can vent my anger and frustration and kind of voice the consequences of what is going on. So yeah, they can't guarantee my contract, so they're not going to be able to renew research into antibiotics.
Well, that's woke, isn't it? All this antibiotic stuff is so woke.
Yeah. I am wokely doing my research into, Pseudomonas and hospital-acquired infections. But I know you mentioned it earlier in today's show. I now have to look, instead of doing nonprofit in the academic and, facilitating this university and is pursuing science, I now have to look into the private sector where there is a profit driven to compete for antibiotics that make money, but not that could be the next, glass box, last line antibiotic that I was working on.
So, all right, just to be clear, I mean, this is a perfect example, and you're in this boat. I imagine there's a bunch of people who work with you who are in this boat, a bunch of people who are thinking, I'm not in the boat now, but I'm next in this boat. They canceled research grant reviews. They canceled traveling. They canceled training for scientists in and outside of the Institute. And they have deleted entire web pages about diversity programs, diversity-related grants from the agency site. Now, that's happening across the board. So what's happening at the NIH is unique relative to what's happening at these other agencies. And you're working on, just to be clear, on a last break the glass antibiotic, because over the years, the excessive use, whether needed or unneeded, of antibiotics has created too many superbugs that are resistant to antibiotics. So you're trying to develop one that will, in cases like that, where you have a antibiotic resistant a bug, essentially, that you will have developed ones that are, break the glass, use this one because nothing else is going to stop this. And
that's the first couple slides in my presentations when I talk about this work.
I mean, I can't even wrap my head around, like, why do you think they come for you guys first? Is that the easiest thing for them to attack, these grants and whatnot? Like, there's enough discretion there that it makes it easier for them as a wrecking crew to pause that. Like, why would you not want that research to continue?
I think it's twofold. I think it's one, because there is a lot of necessary failure to this type of research. There's no guarantee that what I do will work in specifically what I do, but I provide a foundation that other labs can say, well, someone else tried this, so I don't need to pursue it.
Right.
But that doesn't generate profits. So what these public universities will spend a lot of resources covering a lot of ground, because eventually something might work. So they look at it as, this will not generate a profit because, this person didn't provide anything successful. But much like the mRNA research that went along in the background across all these universities, as soon as it was needed, it got ramped up and facilitated, and, through warp speed. I know there's a lot of disagreements on that, but it was there when it was needed. And that's the type of research that is going to be cut first, because it's not, upfront, immediate satisfaction of, this is a product that we can market and make money off of.
Right. So in other words, and I know I'm oversimplifying here, is like, we need to get a virus, an antibiotic that is not, that no virus has developed an ability to, a resistance to. And we have 10 possible theories as to what could do it. But each theory, if we were to pursue them, is going to take a couple years worth of research. And so what the government is doing is they're doing those 10 and maybe they're doing 8 so that in the, like it basically says that anybody else coming into that space knows that way, that road is a dead end. That road is a dead end. That road's a dead end. That road's a dead end. Here's where the solution possibly lies. And then we should say also on top of that, those dead ends may not end up providing the antibiotic, last resort antibiotic that you're developing, but you may find other findings along the way that end up being the basis of other people's research.
You hit the nail on the head. That's how I justify academic research, and that's why it's currently a target, because there's no long-term planning. It's just this short-term, profit seeking. I know you guys talk about this all the time, but that's why it's not an emphasis specifically of this administration. And
they want it. This is the
casualty.
And the other thing that it does is it illustrates expressly how science is a collective endeavor. The idea of one, you may never, I don't know what your life is like. We all have this vision of like you going into a lab all by yourself, and that may be the case, but it is a collective pursuit. Having one scientist doing all the science is just not helpful to develop any new drug or any new development is almost always, not even almost, always a function of other people who have researched in the area and have either, said this is a dead end or there's, one cul-de-sac here worth investigating, or just move on to the next, road and pursue it that way. And we're going to lose a lot of that with this.
Yes.
Appreciate
thank you.
Appreciate the call.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Keith. Was it Keith? Was that his name?
Keith.
Yep.
Yeah, from Chicago. And there's, that's like a direct reaction. And then there's also the chilling effect for other kinds of research where it's just anticipating whether or not they're going to be able to have the same level of resources or functionality under this administration that they would have otherwise. It's bad.
Bad stuff. Bad stuff. Calling from a 970 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Leo from California.
Leo from California. What's on your mind?
So this is crazy. Surprised that the previous caller has almost the same job as me. I am a government employee who works on antibiotic resistance at the USDA.
At the USDA. Okay. And so you're not affected necessarily by the NIH being shut down, but you're going to be affected by something else.
Yeah. Like we are affected. Like we got the letter as well, the McCarthy letter.
Let's put up an example of this letter. Hold on for 1 second. Let's put up an example of this letter. We've got a couple of those. We had one that was sent to the DHS employees. We have one that was sent to the NSA employees. We have ones here. This is the one from the NSA.
Or NASA.
NASA, rather, where they're talking about shutting down DEI programs. And you've got a tattletale on anybody in there who might be still working on something that helps people from underserved communities or people with accessibility in the buildings or something like that. Anybody who's doing that stuff, but using under different words like not being an a-hole, you've got a tattletale on them. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy. The USDA sent that out. And for us, when we first got it, we laughed at it, obviously, because it's so crazy and scary and ridiculous that it's funny, right? But it reminds me, like, my grandfather was blacklisted during the kind of Red Scare because he was a Russian Orthodox church member, and it really reminds me of that period, and it's kind of the first start, right? Because the government targets that are sometimes the easiest to target are the government themselves, right? And don't forget, this is going to come to everywhere else. There are DEI programs that have been set up in every major university as well that rely on government funding and rely on government regulation to keep them going. And when the government starts turning its sights onto the universities, then we're going to see the universities start cutting these programs and the hiring and that they're doing in these areas, right? And so, like, it's scary in that sense because, like, the future is clear. Like, we've seen it before.
Yes, these are the canaries in the coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is their trial run, but it's also part of, like, their agenda. This is the way it works.
And you mentioned the Red Scare, The Apprentice film that came out recently, and everyone should see it, even though I know people are probably sick of hearing about Trump, but it's a really, I think,
didn't the guy just get nominated for Oscar?
They both did, yeah, I think, and I hope Jeremy Strong wins for Roy Cohn, because Roy Cohn, known for pushing for the death penalty for the Rosenbergs, attack, his philosophy. Like, the fact that is one of Donald Trump's most important political mentors ties directly into what you're saying about this Red Scare mentality that is basically kind of being copy-pasted into the 2025 context that Trump's trying to deploy in the administrative state.
Yeah, you're completely right. And at the end of the day, the way that these mechanisms, they kind of already, they've still been there. Like, they've just kind of been under the covers, until someone decided to take them out, dust them off, and start using them again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in fact, something that I was thinking about with the last caller, because my situation, very similar, same research area, in fact, like, just different departments, was that one of our departments had come by and had said something along the lines of, like, this was under Biden. In fact, this was not even, well, it's only been Trump for a couple days at this point, somehow. But they had come by and said, oh, you know what? In order to get enough money, you have to make sure that you're reaching out to richer corporations and richer entities to fund your research, or to at least lobby Congress to fund your research, right? And so this kind of, like, money-seeking attitude has also always been there. It just might be a little more clear when people try to put it to the forefront.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's true. Much tougher sell. It's always been a tough sell, particularly, like, in this era of neoliberalism. Appreciate the call. Thanks.
Have a nice one.
You too. You want to have some fun now?
Yeah, let's try and have a little bit of fun. You remember, this was a long time ago, on Monday, when Elon Musk desperately tried to show how much of his heart goes out to you, and he mistakenly ended up doing some type of thing that everyone interprets as being a Nazi salute.
Including, like, actual white supremacists who were very excited about it. He did it not once, but twice, and as AOC pointed out, repeated for emphasis and clarity.
Oh, yes.
But we're in the era of don't believe your lying eyes, because a lot of wealthy people own our communications platforms, and they can just promote all of the accounts that will gaslight you about the very obvious thing that you just saw right in front of your face. Now, love this post-truth era.
And there's no better way to suss out a complete bootlicker than someone who has made built their reputation on being the Pope of the Jews. And one of the things that you have to do as Pope of the Jews is also police things like anti-Semitism. And we have the actual Pope of the Jews. As you know, he is Jewish and is very sensitive to anti-Semitism, but also has incredible interest in staying in the good graces of this oligarch, Elon Musk. So let's tune in. This is a little bit suspenseful because we have Ben Shapiro, and we're going to see, where will Ben Shapiro, can you guess what Ben Shapiro is going to, really hand it to Elon Musk and say, hey, buddy, what are you doing with your Nazi salute? Or B, you guys have him all wrong.
I got to say, I have a pretty high radar for Nazism. I like a bit of a stake in this particular game. I feel like I can spot some Nazis when I see them. My Nazi radar does not go off around Elon Musk. You know why my Nazi radar doesn't go off around Elon Musk? Because he's not a damned Nazi.
Oh,
in fact, pause it for a second. I got one other reason why his Nazi radar may not go off around Elon Musk. It's because Elon Musk is a friend of mine. He's extremely wealthy. In fact, I rely on his good graces in many, many aspects of my life.
That's because his Nazi radar is a little bit more updated to the current conservative context, where it only goes off and beeps when somebody criticizes the state of Israel.
That's a good point. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, he must have been really good with that Nazi radar when he hired Candace Owens. Well, sometimes that radar gets jammed, buddy. Go ahead.
My Nazi radar does not go off around Elon Musk. You know why my Nazi radar doesn't go off around Elon Musk? Because he's not a damned Nazi. In fact, Elon and I, 1 year ago, this week, were in Auschwitz together, visiting Auschwitz together. We did an event where he spoke about anti-Semitism and how evil it is and the evils of Hitlerianism. What is wrong with you people?
Hold on for a second. I didn't know this.
Wow.
I didn't know this, Emma. He was in Auschwitz. He went to Auschwitz. Well, of course, if you go to Auschwitz, you are definitely not a Nazi, unless, of course, you were there early on in Auschwitz's existence.
Right.
But going to Auschwitz and saying you're not anti-Semitic, wow. Well, I really wonder what inspired him to do that. Do you have any idea, Emma?
Well, it is interesting because prior to that visit, it was just coincidental that he went there after this. Elon Musk, November 2023, so this is 5 weeks after the Hamas attack, Elon Musk agrees.
No, so this is about a year ago, right? Mm-hmm. Just like almost
a year and change.
A year and change. So just before a year ago, when Ben Shapiro went to Auschwitz, and Elon Musk went to Auschwitz and spoke at anti-Semitism is bad. Okay.
Elon Musk agrees with tweet accusing Jewish people of, quote, hatred against whites. Can we go down to the tweet? This was back when the ADL criticized him, and they said that they felt it was anti-Semitic at this time. The tweet said Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites when they claim to want people to stop using that they claim they want people to stop using against them. Then Elon Musk responded, "You have said the actual truth."
Now hold on. Everybody's sitting there going like, oh, when he says you've said the actual truth, that sounds like what he's saying is you have said something that's true.
Right.
But
your truth goes out to me.
People don't know. He's awkward. He's awkward in certain situations. Mm-hmm. So by saying you have said the actual truth, maybe what he meant was you are saying things that I disagree with.
Right.
I am neuroatypical, so I don't know what to say in these situations, except for I feel compelled to agree with you so that things aren't awkward on the platform.
Maybe it was opposite day. When he went to Auschwitz, you know what he said there? He said he was, quote, Jewish by association after going. And he says he's aspirationally Jewish.
Huh.
What are people talking about with this anti-Semitism? Because I never hear it at dinner conversations. Well, when like you're just kind of like used to a specific environment and it almost becomes a part of, your being, and when you leave it, then you're shocked by it. Maybe it's that kind of situation.
It's impressive though that he goes to dinner parties where there's no overt anti-Semitism. I guess maybe it's not there. It's also, he's like, well, maybe I should go to Auschwitz to see anti-Semitism at that time. But obviously, like, Shapiro was his beard, essentially, to go to Auschwitz and to get the blessing back in the good graces of the Jews. I mean,
After that, he went to Israel, by the way. Netanyahu defended him on social media as well. So, that's what the right is saying. Case closed. I've got news for you. Netanyahu engages in Holocaust revisionist history quite frequently. He has repeatedly said a false claim that here's Netanyahu's defense of Elon. Elon Musk is being falsely smeared. Elon is a great friend of Israel. He visited Israel after the October. Right. Okay. He visited them after he made that anti-Semitic reply to that post.
We also know that Israel has been for years and years, well before October 7th, making common cause with right-wing anti-Semitic parties in Europe because, it has benefited Israel. Lord Balfour was an anti-Semite.
Right.
And Israel itself was promoted as a way of getting the Jews out of England. So like the idea of Israel's incentive structure and anti-Semites incentive structure being aligned is really not that strange of an idea. It is literally a significant part of the founding of Israel. But let's go back and watch just like Ben Shapiro with it. See if his boot licking makes his hurts his throat or.
Yes, I just wanted to, because I lost my point that I was making earlier. Netanyahu has said that Adolf Hitler got the idea to exterminate the Jews from the Palestinians, which is not true. It's false. So my point is that Netanyahu regularly engages in this kind of Holocaust revisionism to justify the genocide and the horrific treatment that he does with the Palestinians. So let's not go to him as some arbiter of truth on this front.
And Elon's a fan of the AfD party in Germany, which also
just endorsed them.
Which also Netanyahu's son has also voiced.
Far right German party endorsed by Elon Musk, but he's not a Nazi. Don't worry about it.
And the evils of Hitlerianism. What is wrong with you people? And the answer, of course, is they know better. Of course they know better. Of course they know better. No one honestly believes that Elon Musk was giving a Nazi salute, but they have to characterize their opponents as Nazis. It's the only way. It's the only way. This, by the way, has been the tactic of the entire post-World War II left. Anybody who is not a communist is a Nazi. That is the way this...
That's the way it works.
We could also, it's not like Elon Musk is not a target-rich environment when it comes to, the casual attacks that could be launched upon him on this ilk. He is, and his buddies are all from apartheid South Africa, which I had no idea at any dinner party that there was any type of racism. I never saw it there.
And it's funny you bring up apartheid South Africa because in the context of what you were saying about Balfour, Israel actually used to be very close with the government of South Africa. And you know when that was? It was when it was led by white people and it was an apartheid regime. And I'm forgetting the name of the leader at the time, but he was a literal Hitler fan and a Nazi apologist who was leading apartheid South Africa in I think the 60s and 70s. The Israeli government had no problem with making allegiances there. So, how long can Ben Shapiro make this case, even to his audience, that criticism of Israel is equal to anti-Semitism? Like, we are at the end of the line here. No one buys this anymore after all this time. It's ridiculous.
All right, so we've heard from the Pope of the Jews, Ben Shapiro, as to why it was ridiculous that Elon Musk was, and again, I personally think that it was a troll where Elon Musk was basically trying to cover his tracks with something that could be somewhat ambiguous, he thinks, as a Hitler salute.
Although,
so he'd have some type of deniability.
Did you see how he was acting at the inauguration?
You think he was juiced?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying people could look up videos of his eyes rolling back into his head and then one of his handlers having to whisper in his ear something. It seemed like that's what happened on camera. He might have been a little overenthused on stage. And then something that he practices in private, just theoretically, it's just a theory, could have come out because... I don't know. Did you see the video of Billy Ray Cyrus? Like, there were a lot of people that were enjoying themselves.
I think that was practiced. I really do think that he really practiced that moment. I mean, which is not mutually exclusive from being hopped up on something. But, we know his sense of humor. We know his sort of like whole thing. And, you on Twitter, you reposted a quote from Sartre,
yes.
Saying that like one of the things the fascists do is play with stuff like this because they can, and because they know they have an advantage against people who are using language and representation as meaningful tools. They know that they can play loose and fast with this because they don't have to communicate to 100% of the people. They don't want to communicate to 100% of the people. They know to grow their movement, they need to communicate to the dog whistle people. Here's Jean-Paul Sartre. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they're amusing themselves for it's their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with the discourse, for by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they'll abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. I mean, people have written ad nauseum, like this is part of the irony.
Yep.
In the whole thing. And so
but that's from 1946, and it applies perfectly to the far right today.
Yep. But we heard from the Pope of the Jews. Let's listen to Joe Rogan, who also happens to be a buddy of Elon Musk's. And,
seems relevant because later in this clip, in the second part, he does seem to insinuate that they've spoken.
Well, interesting.
My friend Kurt Metzger told me this. We were talking about the Elon gaffe, where he's like, my heart goes out to you.
So
like, hey,
silly.
Don't do that, though.
That's the perfect example of when you see a story,
Yes.
you believe it's true. If you believe he's a Nazi,
Right.
you're going to see him do a silly hand gesture and see that as that.
Well, he's saying my heart goes
Right,
out to
to
you.
you.
But that is how the
Fingers-
Nazis did it.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. This is what I found out
He
last
did it
night.
twice.
That's also how they used to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, really?
The Pledge of Allegiance used to be done like this until the Nazis came along. And then we switched it to this, your hand over your heart. So we cut out that part.
There's going to be a screen grab of you.
Well, there's already a screen grab. This is what's funny.
Pause it.
CNN.
Now, see, this is amazing that he is using this as some type of justification. There is no doubt that I am sure that there was some type of salute like that for the Pledge of Allegiance. In fact, the Nazi symbol wasn't always, the swastika was not always a swastika. It was an indigenous people design.
It's still used in certain parts of the globe.
You know, Nazi uniforms? Well, they were based on Massachusetts State Trooper outfits. But we know now that the Nazis adopted this. Like the whole point of a salute, again, is to represent something. When you do this in the U.S. Army or in the military, you're indicating that there is a hierarchy that's going on. First person to do it, there's a hierarchy going on. We do this because this is what our, this is our in-group. And if it suddenly changed to, this would mean something different than it did 2 days ago, which is just like, nah. But if we switch this to, this is the way that you signal that you're talking to a superior officer, the idea that this used to be nah, it's irrelevant because everybody now knows. So the idea that any given hand gesture can be innocent, of course that's the case. But to go back in history and even imply, which of course this is, it's not a direct defense, but it's an implication that Elon Musk, as a child growing up in South Africa, and I would say, because he's got to be younger than me, Elon Musk, right? He's
in his early 50s.
He's in his early 50s. He did not grow up at a time where the Pledge of Allegiance, you would stick your hand out like that, because I didn't. And he was not in America, so he did not do the Pledge of the Allegiance to the U.S. flag.
I mean, yeah, his family, they come from all around. His grandparents, according to his father, who were members of the Canadian Nazi Party, who liked Hitler and went to South Africa because they liked the apartheid there. That's according to Elon Musk's own father. But this is what Rogan is stripping it of all context, saying, oh yeah, but prior to the Nazis, they made it. No, that's because context matters, right? And now he goes into the personal agreement piece. This is what the two arguments they have here is to flatten the context, don't believe your lying eyes, and then also, they're always coming after us conservatives.
Be a screen grab if you do. Well, there's already a screen grab. This is what's funny. CNN, during the COVID times in particular, whenever I get in trouble, the photo they would use of me was me at the UFC weigh-ins. So when I do the weigh-ins, I announce the weigh-ins. I say, welcome to the weigh-ins, everybody. I'm waving to the crowd. That's what they did. So they would use this photo of me to try to make it look like I was some sort of a Nazi.
Whatever.
Because I'm waving to the crowd. And they take a freeze frame of it.
Yeah,
like,
that's not what happened. There was video of Elon Musk doing it twice. Twice.
Right.
And not just like it wasn't a gesture. It was a slap it off. Like, he's just got an awkward way of going like, I give you my heart. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, but if you go to that second part, Bradley, I don't really care about Rogan's victim complex as a multi-millionaire, because every defender of Elon is doing the exact same thing that he's saying right now. They're posting a photo of Elizabeth Warren waving and pretending it's a Sig Heil. They're posting a photo of AOC waving and pretending it's a Sig Heil. No one's posting the video. No one would have if I would have defended Rogan if there were all of these CNN outlets calling him a Nazi and just posting the still, and then you find out that it was him waving. No. We know what we saw. And like all of this defense of him precedes him basically revealing here that they've been speaking.
Longtime, first-time claims they never did the Nazi salute for the pledge. It was proposed, but the proposed gesture ended with the hand up, and it never made it into the flag code for obvious reasons. And Bullprog makes the point, Kaepernick wasn't kneeling. He was saying he would propose marriage to the flag, the anthem, because he loves America so much. Go ahead.
Right.
How's Elon handling this whole... He's probably like, what the
Yeah, he was definitely what the fuck. And he was happy that the ADL, of all people, defended him.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, well, it's obvious.
Actually, what's more obvious is at one point, about a year ago, Elon Musk said, you know what? Maybe your organization needs some funding.
Mm-hmm.
And the ADL's ability to be an arbiter for any of this stuff has always been suspect, but now it's just absolutely out the window.
And maybe Israel, do you need some intelligence assistance or satellites for your military campaigns? I'll be down for that. I'm one of the Pentagon's biggest contractors. I'm not an anti-Semite. I've got cold hard cash for you to commit genocide.
Here's anti-establishment Joe Rogan continuing to carry water for the world's richest man.
Defended him.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, well, it's obvious. Like anybody, but all these people on Twitter are just chiming in saying it's clearly a Nazi salute. He's doing a Nazi salute. Yeah. No.
So dumb.
It's so dumb.
It's not clearly.
Yeah, it's crazy. The whole thing's crazy, but that's a sign of the times, and they couldn't help it. They saw a thing, and they're like, "This is we're going to run with it." He's clearly showing he's a Nazi. You know, that Trump's in office, and he's a Nazi, and this is fascism is real, folks. Here it is. This.
Okay.
My heart goes out to you.
Yeah, we got it. It's
My
hilarious.
heart goes out to you.
So I know people have forgotten this, but there was a Madison Square Garden rally that preceded the election by a few weeks that caused a ton of controversy because of a bunch of racist comments that were made there about Puerto Rican people in particular. It was an obvious homage to the Bund. That's what it was called, the Bund rally of American Nazis at Madison Square Garden. They were trying to evoke it. They pretend like they're not in public, and then they snicker about it behind the scenes in private. The exact same thing that these 4chan groypers are saying secretly in response to Elon's salute. He knows what he was doing. He never did "my heart goes out to you" with that emphasis and clarity in other contexts. He wanted to do that in front of the presidential seal of the United States in this country. And as AOC has been saying, like there's a few foundational things for her politics in her response. She was saying, we hate the Confederates and we hate the Nazis in this country. And, there are still World War II veterans that are alive here. And I think it's disgusting that a billionaire thought it would be really cheeky and cute for him to go up there and do that kind of symbol, let alone the number of American Jews and other people who have been victimized by neo-Nazi ideology and just the literal Nazis. It's just gross. And I guess if you want billionaire PR now, you go to Joe Rogan's podcast.
Of course.
Yeah.
Rogan's going to be, going to be carrying Elon Musk's water. Okay. So we've heard from Ben Shapiro, who bootlicked Musk and, really put his yarmulke on the line to protect Musk from any criticism of being anti-Semitic. Joe Rogan just said, this is absolutely crazy. Where did people get this idea? Thank God Musk paid the ADL, contributed to the ADL and got their support. Here's something funny happened at PDB, at the Patrick Bet-David podcast. Remember, this guy was really going off on there should be an all-Jew network or something like that back, a year ago when he was getting on Ben Shapiro. So Patrick Bet-David, they're all going like, this is sort of weird. If people went around town doing this, I give my heart to you. I give my heart to you. People would be like, this seems like a weird gesture to give your heart. This is not it doesn't feel like, why are you pounding your chest so hard and then thrusting your hand out there? It's your heart. Shouldn't you And
he said, my heart goes out to you after. It wasn't at the same time.
Oh, he planned it so much. But these guys now are trying to figure out another excuse. Maybe it's just he, I don't know, just doesn't know how to work his arms. Go ahead.
For making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
Incidentally, pause it for a second. He did it on the other side. He did it twice. The CNN cut away from him when he did it the second time.
Yeah.
But he did it twice. He turned around, did the same thing.
My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured. Thanks to you.
Civilization.
Tom.
That's not it.
Yeah, a lot has been talked. There's been a lot said about this.
I don't know. I see what people are saying. I see what he's saying.
It's
Okay, he
not
puts
so
it right on
crazy?
his heart and goes out. And then he also says, my heart goes out to you. So I don't know what was in his head, but I see how people were talking about it. But, I don't know. I don't know if I can draw the conclusion. And I think it looks a little weird, but I have a tough time with a hard conclusion.
Adam.
Well, look, Elon, there's so many good things I could say about Elon. Smart, intelligent, witty, the richest man in the world.
Witty?
You talk about golf scores all the time.
Yep.
If you played Madden, he's, a 99 on wealth, 100 on wealth, 99 on strength, speed, agility, all that. Listen, Elon, public speaking maybe isn't your thing. Stand-up comedy maybe isn't your thing. So if he paid just a little bit more attention, maybe preparation before going on stage, he would sort of avoid any gaffes. Now, he literally did
Pause it. That's just... First of all, the first 15 seconds of what he was saying was just like slurping it up. Just keep it up, buddy. I mean, suck up to that guy. That was disgusting. He'd be a 90. He's giving him Madden ratings on his IQ. I thought you wanted to say something. That's why we're pausing it. But that was disgusting. Like, we get it. You want that sweet money.
Oh, no. Yeah, he's on full bootlick mode, but he's got to be reasonable and be like, Elon just, he's not great at public speech. He was just winging it. But I'm sorry. Like, this is the time where he comes out for the first time in his life he ever goes like that. He planned this out. And he planned it out in such a way that there was enough ambiguity so that it would get this type of reaction. This is exactly everything that we are doing, they are doing, everybody we've covered is exactly what he wanted to have happen. And it's a fairly easy thing to manipulate if you're willing to do that. And the point is that he has no problem with it being interpreted either way.
Right.
And that is what you do when you're a fascist. Like, that's the thing. You don't need everybody to see it as a Nazi salute because the Nazis see it that way. And for those people who don't see it that way, they're looking around going like, boy, anytime somebody's accused of being a Nazi, it's just overreaction. This is exactly the game plan. This is what they do. Go ahead. Any gaps? Now, he literally did and I go, whoa, what was that? Now, as a Jewish person, let me help you guys out there. He's not a Nazi. He doesn't go to Nazi rallies. He's not a fan of Adolf Hitler. Stop it. I can already see the ridiculous media attacking this guy. Here it is. Reuters, Elon Musk's hand gesture during Trump interview festivities draws scrutiny. The guy was talking about space. I'm sure it looked awkward. I'm sure it looked weird.
No, he wasn't.
I'm sure if he had a chance to do it all over again, he probably wouldn't go and throw a Sea-Cal out there to the atmosphere. He's more interested in going to Mars.
Stop it.
So
I'm sorry.
he's gonna sustain this attack.
He was talking about civilization. You think he said civilization after that as a mistake? You're only a Nazi if you say you're a Nazi. If you go to Nazi rallies and you say you love Adolf Hitler. Wow, it's crazy. That number of people, honestly, is probably in this country smaller than like the avowed white supremacists that are in groups that are basically Nazis, but don't call themselves Nazis. But if you were to have a beer with them or two, they would talk about the Nazis fondly. Like, it's just like, okay, fine, don't call him a Nazi. I'll say that was a fascist symbol, a far-right fascist symbol meant to signal something to Nazis and did signal something to Nazis. Does it make it better? Like, I don't even care if even if it wasn't in Elon's heart, even if he wasn't obsessed with Western birth rates and natalism, even though if he didn't hate unions and communists and leftists, which is, by the way, also part of the Nazi ideology, even if he hadn't made anti-Semitic statements in the past, even if his grandparents weren't allegedly members of the Canadian Nazi Party and loved apartheid, even if we didn't have all of that context.
Unbanning and retweeting Nazi accounts on Twitter.
Right, replatforming white supremacists. Even if we didn't have all this information, even if he wasn't a Nazi, you know what? I wouldn't care. Because what he did empowered and made those Nazis excited. In the same way that when Donald Trump said, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, Donald Trump's not a Proud Boy.
To be fair,
he would have had to have the outfit. He would have had to go to the rallies. He would have had to say, I'm a Proud Boy, put it on my chest. Or was he just trying to signal to those groups? Because that is the same thing. It's the same thing.
But to be fair, he did put out a bunch of tweets saying that he really regretted. Oh, wait, no, he didn't. He did a bunch of puns using famous Nazis as a way of like joking around. Like people are really taking this seriously. Even his crony buddies on these shows are like, it was a Nazi salute, but he did it accidentally. Because I'm sure all those times at Tesla, when he had those big Tesla meetings, he said, my heart goes out to you. Oh, did I accidentally give you the Nazi salute? Oh, my God. What else? Where else these guys go? A little more?
But on behalf of the Jewish community, relax. The guy's on the good team. He's on Team America. He wants the good guys to win.
Vinny.
Sustain this attack. He's going to be just fine.
For all the people out there, great point, because if you're playing the Hitler, Nazi, whatever, just shut up. Just shut up. You got, first of all, the guy's autistic. He has Asperger's.
Here we go.
This guy has never been in the limelight. He's done interviews, which he's freaking amazing.
Wait a second. He's never been in the limelight?
He hosted Saturday Night Live. He's a little baby. He's a little baby.
He had a
Why are you
cameo in
going?
Iron Man 2, which came out 15 years ago.
You're kicking a little puppy. He's a little baby. He's just the richest man on earth, and he's the level of infantilization for the richest person on the planet is the most insane thing I've ever seen. He's a little baby. How can you attack him?
The more they do this, the more it's quite clear. Like the how far they have to go. Like autistic people have a problem controlling their ability to give the Nazi salute. Wait, what?
Greta Thunberg never did that. You know, she's just a leftist advocating for climate change and like ending the genocide in Gaza. I mean, gosh, we could go on and on about the different people that like are neurodivergent that don't do Nazi
Just don't be an idiot. He's autistic. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Has never been in the limelight. He's done interviews, which he's freaking amazing. He will put your lights out, and he did it to that BBC reporter.
Oh.
Like, I don't think he never thought in a million years this guy would be. Remember the last rally he went to where he was jumping? He's so excited. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with people that have Asperger's or they have these conditions. They have autism. I have family members that do. I have friends that do. They don't go in front of crowds. They don't do this type of stuff. The guy's genuinely excited. He's telling his heart is going out to them. He's in the moment. He's not sitting thinking about it. He's not planning it. So for people to try to do, and by the way, this story will be dead after tomorrow. Nobody gives a damn about it. This guy has bigger plans. He has bigger missions. Did it look bad? Yeah, for people that were kind of looking to say, oh, hey, Hitler, which, I mean, how many more Hitler jokes and Charlie Kirk just walked by? Charlie, we love you.
How many more Hitler jokes? Actually, that's a good question. It's a good question because, you know, Elon Musk, if he really didn't want that action to be interpreted in the way that it did, and he was just like, whoa, I'm not a Nazi. I don't want to appeal to Nazis. He would have issued an apology and said, like, I'm so sorry. I got caught up in the moment. You know, maybe my K bag was a little bit stronger than typically. I mean, just like, again, that's a joke. It's just theoretical. This was his apology, Sam.
Don't say Hess to Nazi accusations. Hess, of course, was one of Hitler's top generals. Some will say Goebbels. Some will Goebbels down anything. Goebbels was basically the minister of propaganda. Stop goring your enemies. Another Hitler general. Himmler, his pronouns would have been he. Himmler is another. And bet you did not see that coming.
I've heard that joke 7,000 times.
But amazing.
Puns.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And once he had the ADL give him the stamp of approval, then he was fine.
I mean, why does he even need to apologize when he has guys just sucking him off in the media for free? Sorry. I mean, kissing his ass.
Jeff Bezos came, Bill Gates came, Mark Zuckerberg came, Many of them.
Don Jr.'s nose. Wow, Majority Report violating YouTube terms of service and showing a video of the PBD guys filleting Musk live on air. All right, folks. We've run out of time. I said people would be holding on for 60 minutes, and now it was 69. Sorry. Folks, that's it for our phone call thing. And let's get into some IMs. Listen, I will not be here Monday because on Sunday, and I don't know when they release these things. I don't think it's going to take that long. I don't think it's live though. I'm going to be doing one of these Jubilee surrounded debates.
This could be great.
With I think it's like one progressive and 25 conservatives, I think is what I've been told. Oh, yeah. Let's play one good news. We've got two of these clips. Maybe you can play one on Monday. But let's play this clip of, you'll recall that we have been over the past, I guess, 6 months maybe? I don't know when the first time we saw this. A friend of mine connected with a family and in Gaza. At the time they were in Gaza, they have a child with Down syndrome. Very, the situation in Gaza, horrible for every person there. Particularly difficult if you have, sensitivity to loud noises and, it's not like everyone does it, but particularly difficult for young children with Down syndrome. And so this, no, the other one. We'll play the other video on Monday. But we were connected with this family through their brother in Belgium, and they were trying to get out. And this is when you could get out of Gaza if you bribed people at the Egyptian border. And they were able to, some of them, to get out. The Mohammed's brother and sister and father are still in Gaza. We have a video from them as well. But they thank Emma and I, but really, and the whole Majority Report crew, but understand it was you folks helped get these folks out of Gaza into Egypt, and they used whatever money they had left over to start a bakery to send food back into Gaza. And
that's been feeding people, right?
It's been feeding people, and both like refugees from Gaza and internally in Gaza. Here is the video from them thanking all of us.
Hello, Sam. Hello, Ima. Hello, Majority Report. This is Muhammad Al-Daghma from Gaza, Bakari. I am calling from Egypt with my family. I want to speak with you all after the news of a ceasefire in Gaza finally.
I love you. I love you.
اوكي خلاص اسكتوا شوي خلينا نحكي معهم ماشي. I know it's like a small place, but yeah, we are a big family. We have like the most joy in our life, actually, like we are like 15 months, we cannot even sleep like quietly. We always like thinking stress from the bombing every time, like checking the phone if your father is still alive or if someone like still safe or not. When we hear about the ceasefire, we were like so happy. We go outside in the street, scratching food for people and give them sweet. We were talking with my father and my sister and my brother also. He was showing us how the people of Gaza was so happy. Unfortunately, in Egypt borders, they stayed there. So no one can leave at this moment from Gaza to come to Egypt to evacuate. My mom says we are so happy, but my father is still there, and my brother, the rest of the family is still there. And even if they like the ceasefire right now, it's the winter, and we don't have home there, and no one like has a home. Like they're gonna stay like intent until if someone come or a society to rebuild or to remove the rubbish of the building. Our plan is to still keep working and with the Gaza bakery to try to help the people in the tent, because now the aid is not enough. Even if thousands of trucks going into Gaza, there is still people they cannot reach this aid. I have message for the world. You stand with us like every day, every single day. We have contact to each other. You checking out about me, about my families, about everyone in Gaza. You trying to do your best to help us, and we appreciate that so much. And that's make me so happy that there's other people care about us. It's like with so much distance between us, and you still giving what you can and what you cannot to us with hope, with support, with everything. I have also message for Sam and Ima. I thank you so much, Sam and Ima, because you are trying always to share our stories, my family stories, and without your support and your help, we cannot be able to meet my family even in Egypt or to feed the displaced families in Gaza.
We also have a video from inside Gaza from Muhammad's sister and brother and father. I don't know what the father's saying because I don't. Obviously, there's a language issue, but here is from them in Gaza. I don't know where.
Hello, I'm Rina, Muhammad's sister. I'm 21 years old and I have been trapped in Gaza for 15 months. I am a leader baker in a Gaza bakery. Finally, the long-awaited day has come. After 15 months of suffering, fear, and terror. When a ceasefire was announced, I felt a mixture of emotions like relief, hope, happiness, and a sense of peace. Now, I hope to complete my university studies and graduate from my faculty of pharmacy. The constant fear that filled my days began to disappear, replaced by a precious calm. I felt like I could finally breathe again and dream of a better tomorrow. No fear, no bump today. I can't believe that. It's amazing. No, it's a really amazing feeling.
الحمد لله قد نجونا بعد 470 يوم من المعاناة والجوع والخوف. الحمد لله اليوم في الهدنة فرحانين ومبسوطين بالهدنة اللي حصلت، وإن شاء الله احنا مستمرين في مخبز غزة، ونتأمل من الداعمين انهم يدعمونا عشان نستمر في العطاء ونستمر في التوزيع الناس اللي محتاجة. والحمد لله احنا كتير فرحانين اننا نجونا من بعد هلاك، كنا في دمار وخوف وجوع والحمد لله.
Now we have no time to rest and I don't know what's next, but I feel comfortable and safe in my land.
Thanks, Ima. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Ima, Sam, and Majority Report supporter for sharing my family story.
I particularly like how they say Ima.
Well, thanks to everybody who helped donate, right? We should put the link up to that bakery because they're still doing work over there, right? That's why they're separated.
Yep. If you want, obviously every donation they get, they're trying to get food to folks in Gaza. Hopefully, this peace deal this peace deal, this ceasefire holds, and there's more opportunity to provide relief for these folks. It is such a drop in the bucket in terms of like trying to mitigate the suffering that is going on there. But it is, we were able to at least help this family and mitigate just some tiny part of suffering. So folks were very generous and, wanted to, share that with you so that you have some tiny semblance of hope to leave you with the weekend. We'll put, obviously, the link to the GoFundMe in the podcast and YouTube descriptions and at majority.fm. Going to read some IMs, and then we will head out. Left is Pharma Plug. Hey, I'm our crew. I've been trying to call back in again to give healthcare updates since the Trump admin EOs have commenced. HHS's communication freeze is serious impact on healthcare. Communications from FDA, CDC, NIH right now, plus the EO to dismantle DEIA programs is already starting to negatively impact the availability of existing guidance on clinical trials. This impact is massive and actively picking up speed. Patients and caregivers need to know what is likely to come. It appears there could be an opportunity for legal action as well. Try and call back in on Monday. I have a 202 area code. Yeah, this is a big issue. Left is Big Pharma. Plug. Sitting in my chair, bawling my eyes out with joy and sorrow. Shout out to fellow pharmacists in Gaza. I pray that this pharmacy student graduates soon and can give back to the world as she wishes. Congressional baseball fan. I'm autistic and Jewish. I've never once done a Sieg Heil because autism doesn't work like that. But autism for a lot of us means struggling with seemingly innocuous things like the order in which to place condiments on a sandwich. The mayo cannot touch the cheese, but the mustard is fine. I will explain in detail if asked. I also have special interest in World War II history, so can definitely confirm that this was, in fact, a Nazi salute.
Yep.
Texas Left. This is beautiful. I love this show so much. Thank you. Tom's Cotton Beard. Emma, I was just about to compliment you on how good you are at censoring yourself, and then you talked about sucking off. LOL. Salute.
There's something about just like this naked filleting of this billionaire. It's just like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you trust anything any of those guys say when they're just clearly trying to get close to power?
Charlie Jerk. Watching a Dr. Phil special live on TV right now where Dr. Phil and Eric Adams are walking around with the cops as they force homeless people out of the subway. Really dystopian to see. Very strange. Sam X. Seder. American Experience on PBS made a fantastic documentary last year about the German-American Bund, the pro-Nazi group with the chapters in the suburbs and big cities across America. The episode was called Nazi Town, USA. The full documentary used to be free on YouTube, but it seems to have been removed and now behind a paywall. Colt Dog. He turned his profile into the Kekistan meme, which I'm also pretty sure is a neo-Nazi Groiper reference. Yes. But it's a joke.
Everything's a joke.
Isn't it funny, folks?
And it's honestly kind of cringe if you care.
My significant other, Steve J. CJ says, who works for the other federal government, just said, we're getting emails now straight from OPM because they don't trust the interpretation of bureaus and departments. OPM, I assume, is the Office of Personnel and Management. Is that what it is? Yep. Of Personnel Management. Didn't blank. Santa Ana winds have died down, but San Diego got hit with a few big fires, biggest being on the Mexico border. That is 4,250 acres and right next to my work. Climate change is coming for us all. Dog-faced Herman, I have MS, and go to some online groups. Yesterday, I saw one support group that had posted Ask Us Anything on Facebook. I wasn't the only one to ask, will SSDI and the ADA even exist in 4 years? The stress alone is going to get people killed. Spielkus, extraction till extinction. From neoliberalism to Neolithic. Noah from Tampa. Destroying these agencies just brings us back to the conditions that merited their creation. We need to be thinking about what their plan is when the population is reanimated to remake the administrative state. Yeah, I don't think so. Because they're not going to eliminate these agencies. They're going to hollow them out and make it very difficult for people to see the absence of these agencies rather than the incompetence of the agencies. Right? Like when you don't have an EPA and the Cuyahoga River's on fire, you're like, hey, we should have an agency to fix this. When you do have an EPA and the Cuyahoga River's on fire, you're like, I guess it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Sam from Ottawa. Stop trying to make confirm me happen, Sam. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I know I can't help myself. The Lang Gang. Hey, longtime fan, currently running for DNC. Would love to call in about that briefly because we desperately need more progressives running this party. Be calling from a 561 area code if they're call-ins today. Did not see you on there, but would love to hear from you. Eric Adams, travel agent. Anti-Italian discrimination notably absent from your list of examples. Does Nazi radar go off around Candace Owens? Yeah, good point. And the final IM of the week. Jonathan Armstead. Elon isn't autistic. He's Auschwitztic. I stole that joke from Reddit, but it's still good. Bradley, Matt, in absentia. Ema. Good job today, this week.
Yeah.
I will not be here Monday. I'll be back Tuesday. And hopefully by then we'll have maybe the debate will be released.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, have a good weekend. Stay hopeful. It's important. Get some rest. See you then.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds